Hey everyone, Douglas here, and welcome back to the MMT Macro Trader in our Wednesday live stream. It is 8 p.m. and we're live. Another, at this point, half week in the books, but another week in the books since our last live stream. Welcome back. Bijou, how's it going, man?
Thank you. All right, thanks, man. Had a bit of a tough week this week, being away from a desk a bit. But, found some time to do some writing and was enjoying all your content, actually. Catching up with some of your content, which was pretty good. Pretty good stuff.
Now, you said you were on, I thought you were on vacation. Is vacation?
Oh, no, it was it was like a family trip.
Okay.
So I'm a New Zealand Maori, and my tribe, well, it's a bit of this. I'll do a quick story if you don't mind.
Yeah. Real quick.
So my ancestor was, I think, assassinated because he had exposed the Maori chief as a murderer, and so my family got kind of ostracized from our tribe. This is hundreds of years ago, so we're sort of just only recently reconnecting anyway. So this was what the trip was about. Took a few days. Fun stuff.
Nice.
Yeah.
When I was saying real quick, what I was going to say is real quick. Let me jump in and say, welcome everyone. Yeah. Make sure you hit that like button as we get things off the ground. And then I was going to let you go on about the story.
Okay. I finished. Yeah.
Very good. Howdy, Hamel. If you are just tuning in, make sure you say hi as well. Let us know you're here. Howdy, Josh. Glad you could join. Usually I start off with saying we have a good one. To be honest, with Bijou being out this week, we didn't plan too much. But I think the last time we had a live stream where we didn't have much on the docket to talk about, it went like 4 hours. So since we have one test item prior that went 4 hours, I can guarantee there's a linear relationship there. Between our first variable and this. So this will last 4 hours. This is what I'm trying to say. It's gonna last 4 hours, and we're gonna have the best lives. I did have some fun stuff to share tonight. We'll get into it in just a second. I'm gonna say hi to everyone on the stream. I'm also gonna test something out. I have a new toy with YouTube live stream here. Monique, hopefully your highlighted comment shows up in just a second. I won't tell your boss that you're watching while you're still... Yeah, don't tell my boss I'm still at work. That's awesome. I'm not going to tell your boss. You are being more productive for society by watching this live stream right now than anything that you could be doing for your boss. So, yeah. Welcome aboard.
That
Howdy.
Could even be true.
Welcome from Brazil. That's cool. That is cool.
Yeah.
All right, and the message highlighter works. That's cool. Anyway, yeah. Thanks for everyone for hitting the like button. I see 7 likes so far. When we get to 10 likes, we'll do 10 likes. I'll jump to the research that I have to share. Your boss is probably watching. Just imagine, that'd be funny. When we get to 10 likes, I will share the research that I put together for tonight. Did some deep learning. What's fun too, and we did this last time. I had some stuff to share. I haven't shown this to Bijou. He gets the gist of what I'm doing. We've talked about it, but I haven't shared it with Bijou, so we're going to have some fun with it tonight in the sense that he's going to get to see it live, tell me everything that I probably did wrong and why the outcome isn't actually what I expected, and then I'll go back to the drawing board, and then next week I'll do a whole tweet thread. I'll do a whole tweet thread.
I love putting people down. Yeah.
I'll do a whole Twitter thread explaining everything I did just for Bijou to tell me you probably did a few other things wrong. But that is how we operate. That is what keeps it fun. Anyway, we're having fun. Let me know any questions everyone has. Put them in the chat. Like I said, we have a few things we can chat about that we have kind of queued up to go, but we'd be glad to discuss any questions that you might have tonight, and certainly don't be afraid to derail the live stream. I think we're finding a pretty good groove here in terms of what it is that we're hitting on with these live streams. So again, waiting for those 10 likes, and then I'll jump into the research that I have, at least on my end.
Right. So just to reiterate, anyone who's new here, maybe there's a few new in the chat, right? We kind of tend to do a analysis and research bit first, and then get into fun stuff later on.
The fun stuff
So,
does happen in the second and third hour. So,
well, because the chat can get pretty animated, and they'll get on a sort of theme, and then it sort of flies off from there sometimes. Good stuff.
Since we're just getting going here, and I'm sure people who watch this after it's live, who aren't sticking around for the entire thing, will want to know this, and I want everyone. Oh my God, I got to get this point out very quick because this point is going to matter. Next week, set your clocks, put the alarm on your phone. We have a guest joining us that you're not going to want to miss. Let me rephrase that. We don't have a guest joining us. We have the guest joining us next week. I won't say
is that capital T on
that's a capital
T.
T. That's a capital T. Yes, that's a capital T.
That's a bit of a clue.
That's a capital
T. Too much away.
We highlight it in the MMT scripture with a capital T, and it has that slightly different font. This person will be on next week. You're not going to want to miss it.
That means I can't say same MMT time.
Yes, and this is the most important part.
Oprah.
Oprah. Yes, Oprah is on next week. I can't believe she has.
Well, if you reverse the spelling of Oprah, maybe I don't know. I might get you closer.
Anyway, we have the important guest on next week, but he's going to join us at 6 p.m. Eastern time, 2 hours earlier. I'll get the tweet out, obviously, a couple days early. And if you have any questions, again, I'm gonna withhold telling exactly who this person
or
is.
she. It could be.
Yeah, it could be a she. It could be a she. But if you have any questions for next week, put them in the comment section. Don't put them in the chat. Put them in the comment section. We'll add them to the list to ask for the guest coming up next week. And 6 p.m. Live stream is starting 6 p.m. next week. You're not going to want to miss it. It will be, without a doubt, the greatest live stream ever. I don't know. It'll be a good time. Hopefully it all goes well. The other thing I wanted to hit on before we get into it is, one, we need one more like, and then I can get into the research. And then the other thing is, I was on the Applied MMT podcast actually at the end of last week. They published it this week. I will bring up that website. I think it went well. I think I re-listened to it. I think I misstated something one time, so not bad for just a live. Well, it wasn't a live podcast, but it was.
You re-listened to yourself.
Oh yeah,
that's pretty crazy.
I love to hear myself talk. So
on the YouTube comments, you haven't had anything interesting on that we can address.
My buddy
not today, but
my buddy Rob, I think, has moved along. Applied MMT podcast, appliedmmt.com. They're on Spotify, YouTube, all the podcast things. So check them out. 10 likes. Oh my God,
they're really good. They're a good chatty show, and they do sort of, it's like I know it's a small community that we've got, MMT onliners and all that, but it's good. It's good because they kind of build up some sense of solidarity, I guess, and common understanding amongst MMTers. And they're also helping bridge gaps because they're a bit. Would you say they're finance bros?
Yeah, they are. They are.
But sort of they are very enlightened ones.
Yeah, they are in the finance. They are in the
certainly
finance
not
sector.
not for worker exploitation or anything like that.
Hopefully not.
Yeah.
Hamel, yeah, you're right. If you listened a little bit more than halfway through, I think I did mention that, didn't I? So there's that. So yeah, those are the two things that I wanted to mention off the top. We have our 10 likes, but Bijou, before we get into what I have to share, is there anything you want to say out of the get-go, and then we can get on to some of the research that I wanted to jump into tonight?
I don't know if anyone's got any comments on MMT and trade, because I mean I don't get on Twitter too much, but I follow some of the conversations a little ways, and I'll maybe be inclined to write a mini thread at times. But there are a few things in MMT thought space that I still like to tease out and write about and expand upon. So one is trade and international relations. So I was going to write a blog piece on this, looking at a paper from some Brazilians they're kind of post-Keynesian, I guess you could say. And just if anyone wants to drop some thoughts on MMT and trade, the whole, okay, the soundbite or the meme is for MMT is imports are a benefit and exports are the cost. So exports are the price you pay for your imports, which is, you could call it an oversimplification, but it's essentially correct. And of course, there are nuances. If a currency doesn't understand what it can do with its policy space, then it can get into terrible trouble with international debt. But the other thing is my basic response to a lot of these critics is that they're not really being genuine about their criticism, because, okay, so here's the thing that I want you to think about and comment on if you can, and I'll expand upon it maybe next week or later on, or just put it in my blog, is that even if you consider that a poorer, weaker nation can be forced by sort of economic warfare and imperialism to issue foreign debt, in other words, to issue obligations it has to pay in a foreign currency that it does not issue, which means it can be forced to impose some sort of domestic austerity to keep wages low or whatever, or to artificially try and increase their exports in order to get foreign revenues. If they're in that sort of situation, my argument is it's still the best thing they could possibly do is to understand MMT and run a base case for analysis, which is zero interest rates and full employment, basically. So, I haven't heard anyone. People criticize MMT as sort of not understanding international trade and all the real politic of those relations. But I think it doesn't matter, because in any case, MMT is still the best analysis that you're going to have. You're not going to be able to do any better. So that'd be my argument. Anyway, that's all. That's
No, that's a good. That's a fun conversation. That's a fun conversation to have. And well,
it doesn't quite relate to Dougbot, but
not
maybe in the future.
If we don't get any, if the questions don't come rolling in or whatever, definitely we can. That'll be an hour two. That'd be a good hour 2 discussion. Bijou does have a link, and he can now post it.
I got
to the blog without the YouTube chat kicking us off blocking it. So Jesus, the Brazil Argentina common currency. I listened to an hour-long YouTube video explaining like the dollar and how they're going to get off of it, Brazil, Argentina, and the currency block, and it's all good, but it just, to me, I don't understand why it needs to be any more complicated than use your currency, issue it without issuing it, or without issuing any debt, denominated in some other currency, and then work for full employment and maximizing output. I don't, to me, that's just where it begins. Anyway, it's not a common currency. It's not going to be shared. If it's just if it's just a payment layer, if it's just a settlement layer, I understand that, and that's fine. But if it's anything close to the Eurozone, that's a mess waiting to happen. Okay. So it's not like the Euro. That's good. If it is just a payment settlement layer, then that makes sense. If it's just kind of a clearinghouse layer, I don't think I have any issue with that. But if it ever stands in the way of the ability for any country to maximize spending so it can maximize output, then that's where the problem begins.
The European monetary thing is not a union. It should just be a union, and then they would understand they can always have full employment. It's when they fight each other and they're trying to force austerity upon each other. That's not a union. That's something else. I don't know what you call it.
I kind of thought it was like the Euro too. The video I watched didn't. He explained it. I don't know. It didn't seem to explain it in terms that I could. when I listened to, sometimes I listen to like neoclassical style presentations of economic stuff. I really do get lost because, you know, I mean, I mean, it's as simple as like sometimes they'll say, oh, the Fed is promoting expansionary policies. And I'm like, oh, they must be raising rates. No. Yeah. And then I'm like, oh my God, I got to back up and think like them. I've just been in the MMT world now for, you know, for 10 years now. So I know the Fed's going to do rate hikes and we have a good fiscal cushion. Yeah, we're going to get massive expansion. Like, I mean, it's exactly what's playing out is exactly what would be expected.
You're in the cult.
Yeah.
Are they calling us group thinkers yet?
Oh man. Yeah. This is group thing. Yeah. I do appreciate the cult. Yeah, I feel like you know, some of the trolls that get in my comment section, I kind of appreciate. I mean, I still am out trolling them. I know I am, and I know it pisses them off that I out troll them. But the guys that like can't, I mean, that take themselves just a little, that are completely are completely lack any self awareness. You know, the one guy in particular, he lacks any self awareness whatsoever, and those are the guys. I've yet to block anyone, but those are the guys.
I don't think it's a good idea to block them.
I know. He's that guy in particular.
How much graffiti can one of those guys do? I mean, unless they create a bot that just sort of spams you, but they're not at that level. Yeah. Talking about that, there's this whole idea, you know, the banger tweet that you're constantly after. Do you have that? There was a few good ones recently. Do you have any more potential for banger tweets? Or does the chat here have any ideas for banger tweets? And actually, like, you know, using Twitter as the public peer-reviewed journal of record for you know, unquantifiable ideas.
I did have an idea for a banger tweet, but if you've been on Twitter in the last 3 hours,
is it hush hush or is
it's game over?
Can you talk about it?
Oh, what's that? My next banger tweet?
Yeah,
I don't even know what it is. I haven't
asked. You don't know what it is.
I haven't asked ChatGPT yet, man.
Oh yeah. There you go. This is the fun that Douglas and I had last night. It was quite cool.
Yes, we did. Should I bring up? Oh my God, we role played with ChatGPT, and ChatGPT was a classic. Well, I had it be a neoclassical economist, and it was like, hi, I'm a neoclassical. I can bring it up. Hour 3, and I did. I said, let's keep role playing. It was just hilarious.
Was ChatGPT better than a neoclassical?
Yeah,
it was pretty good.
Oh, and it was actually kind of obnoxious. Yeah, I kind of wanted to punch my monitor. But. All right, we've hit the likes. Make sure you hit like. We've hit the likes. We're past 10. I'm going to get to the good stuff now. Thank you, Cybernetics. I appreciate it. I put some effort into my tweet game. You can't BS a BSer. You can't troll a troller. How does the Bane tweet go? I was born in the dark. I was born under the bridge. All right, time to change gears here. I'm gonna transition. Oops, there's the button over to VS Code. Can I just say too that AI is insane. If you're not on the AI train yet, there have been a lot of technologies over the last decade, right? Starting off with like 3D printing, moving on to VR, even AI Gen 1. There's been a lot of hype, and it's all just fizzled. I would add like even Bitcoin to that, but blockchain. But I mean, I think we all knew that was never going to be much. But there's a lot happening with AI. The reason I bring this up is, I knew barely enough Python 3 months ago to write a Hello World program, and with ChatGPT and really GitHub Copilot, it's insane what you're able to piece together. And most of this is programmed just doing Copilot prompts. So things are going to be quite amazing very soon. But what you came here for was what I shared on Twitter. And what I shared on Twitter was a project that I'm working on. This is the first time that Bijou is going to have a chance to take a look at this. So take a step back. One of the first projects I wanted to work on, obviously the main goal of some of the deep learning that we're trying to do is to eventually create the ultimate bot to understand, the ultimate AI bot to really understand and predict, have a good idea of predicting the S&P. I mean, that is, and really have an understanding of using MMT fundamentals to give us a true alpha edge. And before we build that, though, I really want to understand all the ins and outs of deep learning, neural networks, the various types of neural networks, how to combine different structures of neural networks. And so we've been piecing together a handful of different neural networks. We've done classifier type. This is going to be called an LSTM, which is a time series one, piecing those all together. And the original idea was to actually build a classifier model that could use just the core MMT data to predict recessions, the NBER recession.
And when you say core MMT data, you mean like the data that an MMTer would think was really matters?
Yeah. So for that, it's let me see if I have a bank credit. For me, it's going to be, I don't know if I actually have everything listed out. And just a nice, easy thing. But the core MMT data is going to be the sectoral balance data. It's going to be private sector, public sector, foreign sector, and then that's it, right? And the idea is to build a deep learning model that has just that data in it and some derivative of that data, and I'll show you what the derivatives are. I mean, it turns out I think there were 52 total features to this model. So I said 3 inputs, but it's a derivative of 3 inputs. Yeah, 52 features.
How are you getting rid of the noise and all of that?
Oh,
I want to know.
You're gonna find out. It's
Okay.
it's the noise that actually helps it. Believe it or not. I mean, I know that's
Wow.
it kind of is. I really think it kind of is the noise that yeah, you'll see.
If the noise helps it, it's not noise.
Yeah,
It
that's a
only
good
looks
point.
like-
That's a good
it only
point.
looks like noise.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, keep that question in the back of your head because you'd think there is a lot of noise, and then you'd think giving the training model the unemployment data itself to look at would help it, but clearly there's something in the MMT data and in the way that structures. But the idea was, can it just simply predict what the NBER says is a recession, right? Can it predict it a year out? That was the original idea of the classifier model. It just was too simple. I mean, it really was too simple. We needed something a little bit more. So I wanted it to be able to predict unemployment, and that was 1 year out. I wanted to be able to predict what the unemployment was 1 year out, only showing it the core MMT data. And to give you what the core MMT data is, and to kind of show you how I broke this down, this is the idea. We have bank credit up top. Hopefully you guys can all see this. It looks like it's streaming that way. Bank credit up top from the H.8 data. And then I'm going to take a derivative of all of the main 3. And the reason I'm doing this is it's very clear to us that things like rate of change and acceleration are actually what moves price, right? I mean, that's like we've talked about this in past live streams. That's really the force of price, to use kind of a physics equation. This is where Nora, welcome. Thanks for saying hi. This is where I think a lot of even the mainstream that kind of get things, a lot of the finance bros that I follow on Twitter that I at least kind of admire a bit for their understanding of markets. This is where I think they get things wrong. They're still doing statistics while we're trying to do physics, and it's really that rate of change, and it's also going to be the acceleration of any of these relative to the kind of entire amount of anything that is really what's kind of moving the ticker on the price. So we have bank credit. We have the percent change of bank credit. So this is the actual total amount of bank credit, the percent change of bank credit. We have the moving average of the bank credit. We have bank credit acceleration. We then have total receipts of the monthly treasury statement. So one of the things that's kind of difficult. So this is now going to be government spending. I added receipts in there again. This is just a derivative of government spending, but I did add rate of change and acceleration. It's really that acceleration that's turning out to be the thing. I mean, I've shared this. People don't want to listen, but that's to their own detriment. Those of you who know are listening and completely get it. So one of the things I need to do is instead of just taking you need to accumulate the spending over time. So that's what this is. And I'm taking the receipts that the monthly treasury statement has like 90% of it is taxes. It'd be a Herculean effort to try and extract just the taxes out of the receipts. It doesn't matter. It's close enough. So it's essentially the tax data, percent change of tax data, and then acceleration of tax data, and then the total net spending as well. That we have, or the net deficit for the monthly treasury statement, and then rate of change, moving average, acceleration. Here is the current account balance, the net export import, and again this you can't really. It has issues when you accumulate it, so it just kind of had to be. I don't have the full kind of. The full set for this. It just kind of is what it is. I also think it's probably the least important in the entire model. We then have unemployment rate, and the same idea, acceleration of unemployment rate, moving average. And then I do need to do these all based on GDP and CPI. So this is not how you end up getting the 52 features. Everything as it is in real everything in real terms, everything in nominal terms. So I have both GDP and CPI as well. And then you can see everything by GDP, by CPI, so on and so forth. And then there is all the features. So core MMT data, a handful of derivatives of each of those core MMT data points, some in real, some by GDP that are necessary. And I think we have a pretty thorough picture of what we would call MMT data as is expressed statistically for our model to now do some physics on, right? Bijou, any questions at this point? I mean, everything makes sense so far.
Yeah. Just remember, I get a little bit discombobulated a little bit because there's a lag on the.
Okay.
I have to watch the video on YouTube, but I'm listening to Douglas on the background.
That makes sense. Okay.
I mean, it's a few seconds delayed, but other than that, yeah, it all makes sense to me. I mean, is that clear to everyone in the chat? Seems pretty clear. So continue
on. Okay. Next step here. I'm trying to decide. So I ended up running 3 tests, right? I mean, obviously I want to run it only with the MMT data, right? And I don't know what I want to show first. So I think what I'm actually going to do, I think I'm going to do this. Well, no, I'm going to do it the way I originally intended.
Well, I've got one thing to say before you go on is that one thing that I was really thinking about is manipulating the input a little bit. I'd call it a cheat, but it's not really a cheat. It's like sometimes you might want to quantize some of the data so you can get rid of a bit of a noise that way. But we're not quite there yet, are we? I mean, we need to really figure out what impulses or what rates of change and accelerations rise above a significant sort of level.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can understand that, you can give your neural network a little bit of a bigger advantage.
Yep.
It's basically like taking it to primary school and teaching it, prime numbers or something like that. So it has an easier time learning, doing the deep learning.
This is
but
no, you're right. The one thing I've learned,
it might confuse people when they look at all that, and they see quite a lot of noise, and it's like,
as to why we're doing it. It's
like how could this possibly predict anything? It's like, it can be done, I think.
Yeah. Okay. I get what you're saying. Part of the reason that we take so many derivatives is we are starting to, we're doing some preparatory teaching, so it doesn't have to learn. Yeah. And that is by far in this whole process of figuring this out, pre-processing the data, doing the data prep is the most difficult part. I thought doing the hyperparameter tuning was going to be really hard on these things. It's not fun it's quite exhilarating, but really making sure you're giving the machine the right data to understand, and that you're not overfitting and stuff with the data. That is a tricky part. And that's the thing we got to get right before we publish this and make it fully public. And just, this will we will without a doubt end up putting this on a public GitHub. Anything that I deem is academically worthy, that an academic can take and run, that isn't some sort of proprietary, here's how you can make money off the markets, we're going to put out there. That was the agreement Bijou and I had when we started this whole thing together. That's going to be for free. But if you do want access to this stuff, before we get it out to the free page, when it's still kind of in the not ready for public consumption, and I don't want to be criticized by everyone until I've thought through every possible angle on this. We are going to put that on the Patreon for all tiers for this research. So if it is something you want to take a look at, the stuff that I did a couple weeks ago is public right now on the Granger cause and whatnot. So I mean, this stuff will make it on the Patreon when it's good enough. But in a few months' time, it'll be on a public GitHub. So anyway, we have some data that we're going to stick into this neural network. Here's the data. I have a bunch of cleanup. What I want to show with this is I made 3 models, and this is to help, because really what do we want to do? We want to see if a deep learning network that is structured the right way to learn on this data, can it find anything? Can it find anything of value with the MMT data? Right? Can it add any value? In other words, you can create a regression model to perfectly, to just fit on itself, right? And I did that. I gave it just the unemployment rate, the moving average of the unemployment rate, and the acceleration of the unemployment rate, and said, predict the unemployment rate in the future. That's one of the things I gave, right? So is the model with the MMT data any better than just it predicting itself based on its own data, right? So there's that, and then what do you get out of having the unemployment data in there as well? So I ultimately ran 3, one with MMT data plus the unemployment rate as the possibility to learn, and I figured that would be the best predictive model. Then MMT without unemployment data, so it's going to predict the unemployment rate 1 year forward, but it doesn't have any unemployment rate to understand right now, right? So it's only going off the MMT. I figured that would be the second best. And then unemployment rate only, right? It only has the history of the unemployment rate to predict itself on. How would that do? And I figured that would be the worst. Maybe a little surprised. I kind of even surprised myself when this is all said and done. So what are we looking at? We are looking at the one that actually does have, this is the model that does have the unemployment rate data as part of its data set to predict unemployment. The other 53 or 52, 53 columns. So that would be the unemployment rate. Yes, so it's 52 features for this model, I believe. 52 features. We do some more data prep. I do apply some pre-processing to this to standardize it. So this is an LSTM. If you do know deep learning models, LSTM, I did the window size. So it's looking at the 12 periods to predict. So the window size is 12. That's been a little funky to me in terms of how that's actually playing out, but I decided 12 was the right thing. If you know what you're looking at here, I'll zoom on in here. Here's the actual model itself. It is pretty basic. I have 2 LSTM layers, 1 dense layer. Probably even a little too much, to be honest. I noticed some overfitting after about 1,500 epochs, so we did 1,500 epochs. So here's the model itself. 14,000 total parameters. We ran it, and what we're looking for is the validation loss to continue to drop. So we had early on in the first few epochs, validation loss begins to drop, and then it really just settles. These things are built to learn. So on the training data itself, you're going to see the training data itself converge, but the validation pretty quickly stalls out on this model. And I ran this a handful of times. It seems to be kind of the consistent, it seems to be pretty much where it's at. I'm not going to show you that. I'll go right to the good stuff where I finally then produce the results. And here is what the model was able to figure out with that data. And I'm pretty impressed. I mean, I thought one of two things would happen. I thought either this thing would just be so chaotic and noisy that it would prove that there's nothing in the quote unquote MMT data, or I thought it would just be a straight line, right? And we see that. You see that if you ever go on YouTube and you look up, stock market deep learning, and you do LSTM models, what happens is it very quickly converges on a straight line. But that's not what happened. That's not what happened here. So I'm not hearing Bijou. Bijou, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah. All I say is I keep wondering why you're training on the COVID spike there, because that's a bit of an outlier.
Yes.
I wouldn't do that. I just round that off or smooth it somehow.
Kick it out completely. Maybe.
Or kick it out completely, maybe. I don't
Stop
know.
the training.
Split up the training a little bit either side of that, perhaps.
Okay.
But also if you got time to, do a bit of a script, you could also you do the COVID spike, but smooth. So you wouldn't go up to 10 there on the y-axis. You maybe round it up to 2 to 3 or 4 or something like that. Make it a spike. It's useful signal. But also maybe do a few tests without that.
Cut it off prior to that and see. Yeah, it's good. That's a good idea. Yeah. The reason is, right, is, obviously the COVID spike was not what we would call a, financial sector recession, right? I mean, it wasn't a business cycle recession, and it wasn't a business cycle unemployment spike either.
The balance sheet adjusts after that.
Yeah.
They're not telling information before that.
And I did run this model. So, and that's also why I picked the training portion to be.
Unless on the balance sheet you can see some massive injection of funds into the Wuhan Research Institute
prior to it, and oh my God, we're gonna get a strike on the YouTube channel.
Sorry. Cancel. Did I say Wuhan?
Sorry. So that's a training model, and I gotta admit, I'm pretty darn impressed given what I gave it to learn on, that it was able to predict. So how this works is it never sees the testing data. It sees the validation data, but it doesn't train on the validation data, but it does train on the training data, obviously. So it knows what's there. So it's going to fit it perfectly. I mean, that's what they're built to do. It will fit it perfectly. But I'm pretty impressed that it was able to understand the gist of what's going on. Now, the question is it doing this because it has the unemployment rate to train on? And that is the big question. Right. So we have to drop the unemployment rate. And then we have to see, okay, with the unemployment rate, does it just do better, right? I mean, or does it just do the same, right? I mean, if it does better or the same with the unemployment rate, then the MMT data was actually just noise, right?
Yeah.
So those are the next two questions. And the thing we're trying to find out is, does the MMT data help it, right? And again, this MMT data is structured in a way that we're telling it, we're almost baking in the MMT assumptions with the way that we've modeled the data ahead of time. So it's trying to figure this out via MMT. And I'm pretty impressed. I really am impressed. It's a pretty basic model when it's all said and done. I think there's some things I can do to really spruce it up. I think there's some ways that we can, tune this. Like Bijou said, maybe drop the spike from the COVID spike, that sort of thing, to get it to learn a little bit more, so it can be more applicable to the business cycle as opposed to just, I mean, obviously if an asteroid hits, if an asteroid hits, there would be no unemployment because there would be no taxation in dollars left. But you get what I'm saying.
But again, we would see it ahead of time. I mean, NASA or whoever would be monitoring, and so all this fiscal flow would go into, I don't know,
stopping the asteroid
to asteroids.
Yeah. How funny would that be all of a sudden if my year ahead in the future predictor starts going off the Richter scale, and then lo and behold, it's an asteroid coming. I guess it wouldn't be funny, but it would be ironic. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Oh, look at that! I'm already down here. Anyway, what I do want to show is that I did take out of the training data the unemployment rate. So no cheating. I took it out. Again, a couple hundred epochs, you start to see validation loss, validation and error begin to flatten out here and then tick up. So, I mean, it does start to overfit. This is a problem I've got to figure out. In other words, I think we can make this model better, but here's the final outcome. And I think it almost performs better, man. I mean, I think it almost performs better when it doesn't know what the unemployment rate actually is. And I was geeked. I was absolutely geeked to see this.
Well, now I'm itching because Douglas is constantly trying to get me to do. Okay, so here's the thing, guys. Right, so I'm in a toxic relationship with my internet boss here. You see, because he's doing all the work. It's like, it's toxic, man. It's like, what's going on here? But no, so Douglas is really good at this stuff. And but you see, what this makes me itch itching to get into it is to like, you know, what if you do remove this COVID training spike, because that's kind of biasing it in a bad way. So it's like over mummying it.
And you can tell that's exactly what I found. Every time I ran this thing, it always overshot to the upside. It never undershot. Yeah.
It's like having Michael Jordan assist you, but way too much. So you're actually not even shooting.
Yep. Yeah.
Cool. This is interesting.
Okay, but and I did this before. So one of the things, and again, when you watch all the tutorials online, they all just tell you to like pick the window, forward looking, but it's essentially predicting itself. It's not actually predicting like they get it wrong. Pretty much, if you want to write a deep learning bot to predict stocks, you have to do the forward return, which is what this is. You can't just continue to predict a line. Yeah, I agree, Nora. It really will. So I did do one, and what I found out that it was literally just kind of fitting the data, and it does predict unemployment perfectly with unemployment. But the question is, can it predict forward? We'll call it the forward return of unemployment, or the forward change of unemployment, and this is where it comes. This is where the fun stuff happens, because what we want this thing to look absolutely terrible. So before, I shouldn't. I wish I would have had this set up. So I want to show everyone. I want to keep the tease going. I want
drawing this out.
Yeah, I want to draw this out.
In an hour.
Here's the data. Here's the data. That's it. Unemployment rate, the moving average of the unemployment rate, the acceleration of the unemployment rate, predicting the 1 year forward unemployment rate. That's it. What do we got? I'll jump back to that. What do we got? Oh my God, it's so ugly. It's so bad, which means the MMT data is absolutely helping the model. And by the way, all of these models are exactly the same. The parameters are slightly lower in this one because there's only three. Three input variables, but the total LSTM layers and the nodes itself are there. So if anyone wants to double check that, it's manic. It doesn't know what to do. I mean, it jumps lower right after the peak in the 90s unemployment spike. I mean, it way overshoots in the 2000s. Way undershoots. It's just completely sideways heading into 2008. It doesn't even. Yeah,
schizophrenia.
So it doesn't have. There's just no information. It's pure noise. If I would have seen this, with the first two models, I would have been like so disheartened. But I didn't. But we didn't. And so going back, this is what we got. There is something right with the MMT data that it's able to understand. And I'll switch these again just so you can kind of see these through and through.
Not just going to blow up with the finance bros, but I reckon the Minsky people are going to have to respond too, because they're going to have to hyperparameter fit the Minsky models so that they get more than just qualitative dynamics in that. I reckon it was a good challenge anyway. But I mean, that's all. We're also going to plan to use Minsky as well.
Yes,
type models dynamically to assist.
Which time, man? I like your tweet about the stock flow consistent Python stuff that's already out there. I'm excited to take a look at that. It is on my to-do list. So that is the research for the night. Again, we call this project the Kelton classifier. This is not a classifier model. It's actually a long short-term memory deep neural network. But I will add the classifier layer back. It's going to, without problem, be able to predict recession. I haven't added the layer in. Maybe I shouldn't speak too soon. But I will add the classifier. Every model we're going to make for kind of public consumption is going to have a project name that honors one of the MMT greats, or is going to dishonor one of the the people that deserve it.
Bernanke ball breaker.
Yeah, exactly. So we will have we'll be producing this stuff, and since we are an hour in, we're only 45 minutes in, but
summer stinger.
The summer stinger. Yeah. But if you do, if you like this and you want to support us and you want to get access to this stuff, the patreon.com/MMT Macro Trader. This will be my one plug for the night.
The bummer is that you've only
Get a test. Yeah. Well, hopefully this just sits on the shelf and collects dust. But real quick, we did add on the Patreon, we did add a new tier. A handful of people are definitely looking for something in the middle. They're kind of market watchers. They just want an update a week to see what the core MMT data looks like. I did add that tier. There is just a supporter tier now. We're fleshing everything out in terms of what we want to offer. I'm taking everyone's feedback as I get it. Check that out. MMT Macro Trader. Oh, Bijou is not coming in. Sorry about that. I think Bijou's mic stopped. Bijou, can you talk real quick?
Yeah, hi.
Okay.
I am there.
Bijou, can you guys hear Bijou again?
Hi there, guys. I am talking to Douglas now, and he can hear me, I think.
I can hear you. Hopefully the chat can hear me. Let me know, guys, if you can hear him.
I can definitely see my icon, flashing
moving
there on the thing. So.
I think you're back. Okay, fixed. Yep. Okay,
Yeah.
I think I know what happened. I think the scene that I switched off to share the Patreon feed real quick cut your mic when I switched to that feed. Anyway, enough of my plug.
Yeah. You got the plug in there, so that was not me.
Yeah.
All I said there that may have been dropped was that it's kind of like we're in an awkward position now because we want the next recession to happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
We want to be able to test the stuff in real time rather than just looking at historical data.
If anyone has some time, and they want to, I do have, and I've done this before, and I can get you the stuff that I've done. I can get it together. Message me. Well, Twitter might be dead, so I don't know. That might not be the best place to do it. But if Twitter DMs ever get fixed, message me. I have the monthly treasury statement that I went, the PDFs, they're scanned PDFs. I went back and entered all the data back to 1946, and I think it goes further back. So if you want to help out on this project, and it's something you want to do to get data further back and go through the monthly treasury statement, I think, let me see, going all the way up here. Because we have unemployment data going back to the 1950s. It's the monthly treasury statement stuff that ends in and it is going to be the bank data as well. So we could, here's a way we could get it going further back, is we could interpolate using the BIS data with a bank credit going back. I could do a model to fit that, and that would take care of the bank data. The monthly treasury statement, I think we can get further back, but we need some help with that. Oh, yeah. And the net export import, I mean, I think we can effectively just say that that's zero going back into history. So I don't think that would be that hard. And then, I think we could get some generalization of the data going back to about 1945.
Yeah. And just as an exercise anyway, probably don't need all of the data. Just whatever we can get and just do the exercise looking back on historical data. Also, we talked earlier a long time ago now, I think, about different regimes, where there were massive changes in international relations and,
how the banking sector works and
So it's useful to not just look at the models over the period of the 1980s to the 2000s, but also just see if the same sort of methodology using the LSTM and so forth works on the historical data, just on the historical data itself, just the same sort of thing. But also, you could also then possibly use a neural network that you've trained on modern data and just as an exercise to see if it actually performs at all any good on historical data. But then you'd have to make it fair. So you'd have to, if you don't have the historical data for, say, some fiscal flow time series, you'd have to remove that from the modern data and then, redo the training for that without that data, just to make a fair comparison. So you're comparing apples with apples. But anyway, all that stuff is It's a fair bit of hours there.
So I think my final word on this is I'm super stoked. If you've ran across our channel, you're not subscribed yet, get subscribed, follow me on Twitter. I mean, I'm going to be dropping all this stuff soon, and I'm in all honesty, I tweeted this out earlier. Someone was joking about how I pull the greatest reply guys out on every tweet I have.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, the dopamine rush I get, as I joked, I don't do it for the money, the fame, the sex. No, man. Yeah. I do it for the Twitter replies. I do it for pissing off the monetarist at this point, because it's so easy. I mean, this is the thing. This is what's so fun. My wife even told me she hasn't seen me so excited in so long. The other day, just really telling you, right? I mean, listen, I'm about to hit my midlife crisis, 4 kids, the whole thing, right?
Those reply guys, the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah,
the gift that lays the golden Twitter.
They have absolutely rejuvenated me, and every time we do the machine learning, the deep learning stuff, and the data science, and it just continues to just show that this Warren Mosler guy was onto something really profound 30, 40 years ago. It's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing.
You realize, though, that it only works if those Twitter reply people have the long and short-term memory. If they just have the short-term memory, all of our past tweets are irrelevant to them. It's like only the next one that they have to knock down. So, yeah. So you need them as much as they need you, it seems.
Oh, correct. Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
No, this is some good exchanges. The thing about Jesus, if you're still there, the thing about getting on Twitter is you got to understand that you got to take it like Douglas does, as a bit of a educational tool for the masses, but also you can't afford to really let it get to you if someone is abusive or really annoying or really repeating just dumb mainstream neoclassical points. Because you got to remember, they honestly, well, is it honest? I don't know. It's a tricky word to use. But they, some of them will believe their what they've been taught from the books, and so Douglas isn't trying to sort of be mean to them or anything. It's like,
well, some of them.
Some of you. No.
I'm not trying to. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just that joke.
But yeah. I mean, it's some. If you're going to be very aggressive and ignore some of the data on Twitter, you have to be prepared to get some of your own back. I guess.
Yeah.
So it's banter. It does get a bit nasty at times. So don't venture on Twitter if you don't understand that it can get nasty, and the sort of the lively banter back and forth can escalate, and it's not pleasant. I mean, no one's immune. We're not just bots here, like pretending to be aggressive and angry. It does affect people's emotions and can kind of ruin your day if someone's really, really sort of nasty to you. If you're a sensitive type, which some people are, so you gotta be careful about Twitter. But it is good to see. I mean, I do approach some of these replies, click on them with some trepidation, I have to say. It's like, is this going to make me want to jump on a rant and do a big thread, and that no one is ever going to read, and it's just to let off some steam. I sort of worry about wasting my time that way. So. Good to have Douglas doing the active work on that side of things.
Nora, I agree. That's like the worst. That's the worst thing. I mean, they literally just step in and you're wrong, wrong. That guy in particular.
Wrong. He's a graph. Boom.
That guy in particular. There's a few of them that I'm willing to. Pretty much. My philosophy is if I can make a funny retort, I'm going to do it. Right.
Right.
But I'm going to put in.
Thinking of the funny retort. Yeah.
I'm going to put in as much effort as they put in. Do you know what I mean?
Right. That sounds good.
And then, so I'm going to put in as much effort, but I'm also going to go in as far as opposite of direction, right? So if they say something like, you're just an ass in a cult,
Right.
I'm going to meet them with, yeah, you're right. I am in a cult.
Yeah.
Right. But if,
And
yeah. But if the comment is you're an ass and you don't know what you're talking about and here's why, then at least, I have honor to defend. So I will say why I'm right. But,
oh yeah.
but I'm
Gotta
seeing,
defend the
I'm seeing
truth
less
and
and
honor.
less of the you're wrong, here's why, because they know exactly what I'll do. I can put that in a learning model,
Right. What was it? Yeah.
Anyway, we've hit on deep learning. If you guys have any questions about the model, let me know. If anything comes up in your mind, let me know. And Bijou's taking you to make the best Kool-Aid. Yes. Jesus. Yeah, this is good, man. This is what we need. This is what we need in the MMT world. Let me know if you have any questions on the model. Otherwise, we'll kind of move along. And the deep learning model, by the way. And then we'll move along to kind of other topics. But I'm pumped. We have more to share soon. So yeah. And there's the other thing too. The other thing I will ask for, if you kind of think of something down the line, put it in the comment section, after the video is published. But if there's something that is just, would be neat to study, that would be worthwhile, that would be engaging to with the Twitter world, let me know. I mean, I'm always kind of looking for something just fun to start to toy around with. I mean, I've got other things on the back burner, non-gas stove burner, electric burner. I've got other things on the back burner that are ready to go, but
Sim, I think I've seen you, Sim. Is your Twitter handle something different? But I appreciate that. I mean, it's great to know that that there's an MMT community on Twitter. Sometimes we're fighting each other, but we're also giving the odd tweet out. There's a little bit of a meme that can boost each other's little understandings, and I think the whole purpose of Twitter, I think, and any social media can be a little bit underappreciated, because it gives you it can, when it's done well, give you a very succinct synopsis of how to express things in social discourse, say with your family or your friends. That can be really, really valuable, instead of waffling on like a lecture, like like a Randy Ray or something like that, or Bill Mitchell's blogs. Who's going to go and read Bill Mitchell's blogs? Well, me, I do every day, but in your circle of friends, so it's really good to have Twitter as a resource like that. You can get the odd, paragraph of a few hundred words or whatever to help you with your, just your activist efforts among your friends, I reckon.
Now 4,000 words. Now 4,000 words by
is it?
Yeah. If you're on Twitter Blue. Do you guys know I signed up for Twitter? You guys don't know this. I signed up for Twitter Blue today. I got to tell you, I'm giving Elon my $8 because I like the 4,000 words. I also like the high def video that can be as long as you want it. So he has my $8. I'm sorry, but it's the long form video that really finally got me to sign up. So I signed up today, and within 30 minutes after signing up, that's when Twitter went down. So I think I broke it. Yeah, 4,000. Check it out.
Well,
it just went live, Ty. It just went live today. So I know you're a blue checker. So
yeah, well, that's got to be a composition fallacy error, right? So you think you broke it, but it was probably you and a whole few other million people.
From the way Twitter's been running, it might have been me.
Oh, you're so self-centered.
No, I'm just saying. I think it was one. No, we talked about this. There was the final grain of sand that is. Yeah. That's good, Ty. I will check it out.
Also, can I should just say that all of this effort in MMT education, and it's a cult and everything like that, it's actually a paradigm shift. That's what I would always say. And I was listening, actually, Ty, thank you, Ty, for also boosting Steve Grumbine, because he does have some pretty emotive stuff to say, and it's it's a good but grassroots kind of activist effort that he does over there on Real Progressives. But I keep trying to tell Steve to not have a hernia or anything, because like paradigm shifts take a long time. If you remember the big one that MMT is often compared to, which was in astronomy, which was the Copernicus revolution. It took, over 100 years. So something like from 1543, when Copernicus published his Tractus or whatever it was, to I think Galileo in 1610. So long period of time. I don't think you have to wait.
Hold on. Say those dates. Say those dates again.
Yeah. 1543 was Copernicus's
1543.
Yeah.
Okay.
Some Latin name. I don't remember them.
Okay.
And Galileo's pamphlet in 1610. So,
70 years, 75 years.
70, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
60, 70 years.
Okay.
I mean, the thing is about that was slow going back then, right? With
because I don't think Twitter. I don't think Twitter started until a few more years after that. So
yeah.
to get the word out.
They had their equivalent of Twitter. You should see some of the letters they were writing to each other. But yeah, it wasn't quite as fast. So I mean, I don't think you have to wait 70 years for an MMT kind of revolution. You just have to wait for one or two generations to die off. Yeah.
Big Dog just put a question in the comment section. I'm gonna scooch on over there. Let me get up.
Okay.
That window real quick. Actually, before Big Dog, I will answer your question in just a second. But before that, Sim, welcome. First time I think I've seen you comment. Welcome. I'm glad this has become valuable for you. Hopefully it's a fun time too. I mean, in terms of learning MMT and that sort of thing. And hopefully you can, as Bijou said, you can learn how to speak MMT in a way that people might listen to. But if you need any ideas for your undergrad work, and there's any research that you're allowed to do that's self what do they call it? What do they call it when you go on your own way in academia?
Self-learning.
Yeah. What's it called when you take a class that's your own research? Anyway.
Self-directed learning.
Yeah, something like that.
Student-centered learning.
If there's any research you need to do, let me know, man. I've self-study. I don't know why I can't think of this. Like an independent study. I think that's what they call it. Like an independent study. Yeah, independent study. That's what I was thinking.
That's a bit of bullshit. Who's ever independent? It's self-directed is the correct.
Anyway, if there's any, reach out to me, man. I could have some ideas for you. If you ever need to piece something together. All right, Big Dog.
Go
ahead. Yeah.
Oh no, just as far as education and discourse goes too. Remember, I haven't really prepared this yet, so maybe in a future live stream. But one of the things I jotted down for discussing today was just very quickly before Douglas gets to the chat was MMT can also help with what I call general covariance in macroeconomics. The physics slang there, the physics jargon getting in, and I always try to do.
Yeah, this is cool. This is cool though. Yeah.
But okay, so the idea there is.
Do you want me to pull up? Let me pull up your screen while you do this.
Yeah, that'd actually be helpful because then I could save a whole lot of talk that would just confuse people.
Big Dog, I've got my chart pulled up here, so I'll come back to your question in just a second.
I'm gonna have to wait a little bit. There we go.
No, you're good to go. You're good to go.
Bit of a delay there.
Yeah.
So you see, the idea of general covariance in physics is that when you talk about things at a very superficial level, you can really get confused and get into debates and problems over just definitions or your frame of reference. So if you think about these two, the green and the red dot there in the picture are what really matters, okay, and their relationship between these two things here, and but it looks like the relationship is different on this set of axes. It's like red is quite apart from green on the bottom axis, but on the top axis here they're not too far apart, and so on. And so all you need to do is just rotate the reference frame a little bit, and you get a totally different perspective where now they're pretty much dead equal on the x-axis, but widely separated on the y-axis. And so this is just a very general sort of highfalutin philosophical remark here that I wanted to write about this at some point. I want to write about this in my blog, but I haven't quite got it all down yet. So I'm just do this live on the live stream here to give you sort of some idea of the idea. But it's the general idea is that if you can switch your reference frame more towards someone else's point of view, it's possible to find more common agreement with them than you might think exists in the first place.
Yeah.
So Twitter's probably not the place for this, right? For general covariance and macroeconomics.
Yeah.
There are other forums, like you go to a public forum or something like that, where people are debating the latest, political candidates or whatever forum you want to engage in. There are ways to reorient your perspective to see the world from someone else's point of view, and you'll find, although you're describing the same phenomena, the green and red dot here, abstractly, whatever they are, you might find that their point of view sounds different to yours initially because you got it wrong. You got different reference frames of thought. So there's this nice quote from a mathematician. He says, actually, I forget who this quote was from. When you happen upon a contradiction, then make a distinction. Might have been William James. No, I forget. I should have put the name down. It was a good.
I can Google it.
Yeah. When you happen upon a contradiction, then make a distinction. I might have paraphrased. There's a guy talking on this very abstract topoi or category theory. It was pretty interesting, or homotopy theory or something like that. So I came across that remark and it just immediately clicked with MMT. That MMT gives you that frame of reference, but it's also possible to switch to another frame in order to first establish sort of some harmony, some agreement with people, and then help them understand how to maybe move from perhaps a neoclassical frame of reference to an MMT frame or something like that, because you're describing the same phenomenon here, but with a different lens, and it can make a difference in what you say. So what you say will depend upon your coordinates here, right? These two coordinates differences often. Now, can I actually give you a good concrete example?
William James is the name that keeps coming up.
William James, yeah, it's probably was William James.
Okay.
And the mathematician guy was just appropriated that for his math talk, which is a fun talk.
Okay.
Do. Yeah. So keep that in mind, everyone. Go out there. Don't look for an argument or debate unless you're on Twitter and you want to create a bit of heat. But in the real world, outside your social, look for points of agreement. I know it's hard. I mean, I've had in-laws that I just get stunned by their ignorance, and they won't let me even attempt to even rotate their reference frame at all. So that can sometimes be half the battle. Anyway,
I'm gonna riff on that for actually a second, because I'll tell you, I think one of the things. I'm going to talk highly about myself for a second here.
Go ahead.
I'm going to pat myself on the back. I'll tell you what, and I'm really thinking about like for Sim, for people who are just starting down the research process and whatnot. I really think what you just laid out there is a really good mindset to have when you're starting to do the research, especially if you just want to get the right answer that's going to be functional for you. I think you have to have an attitude like that, because I remember when I first listened to Perry Merlin. If you can just take what someone like that is saying and just realize that they've shifted their X and Y axis from you, but effectively that guy's saying, exactly what it is that you need to better understand that part of the world, that part of what's going on. Like if you have an approach where not only do the two measurements you have to be in the same spot, but your axes have to be at the same angle, you're gonna disregard so much learning that could be done, and you're gonna and you're just gonna never find the data that it is that you need to collect, to understand, and get the answers for the questions you're asking.
Right.
I think having that attitude,
yes. Paradigm.
Yes. I mean, if you're like, I disagree with, XYZ person.
Hey, let me be a bit inflammatory here.
Yeah.
Although check my spelling.
Who's
I know,
Mark?
a friend of the chat will probably.
I don't know who the guy on the right is. I don't.
Oh, okay. Oh, I'm gonna be mean.
Let me. No. Ties.
No. I'm
Ties
being
are
mean.
ties. It's you're thinking of Tyrone.
Those guys are definitely more over here, than over here. I don't know who could be persuaded. Kragers?
I just looked up
I don't know.
who is. I don't know who this Mark guy is.
Oh, he's a good post-Keynesian,
Okay.
good friend of Moses and the crowd. Yeah, he just thinks MMT makes too much of consolidated government.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't respond to Ty on that thing, but I don't think I need to, because I think, ultimately we're all on the same page here.
Yeah.
Central bank is a branch of government. They're controlled by government, but absolutely their mandate and what sort of independence they do is granted to them by the government, by the rest of the government. But what independence they have does have an effect, makes a difference. I don't think MMT would disagree with the post-Keynesians on that. But here's the other inflammatory thing that I like to say sometimes, is that MMT is a superset of post-Keynesian economics. Superset. The post-Keynesians are a subset of us. So there you go. I'm prepared to defend it. All comers, come and take you on.
I just looked up that Mark guy. Yeah, I found him. Thank you. Josh.
Yeah, he's a good guy. Wrote a good book, Dynamical Economics, but he did the wrong perspective because they were doing equilibrium analysis still. So they didn't learn from Steve King. He did a lot of effort on the math for dynamical macroeconomic models with, I think he was doing it with, who was he doing it with? One of the G's, Goodwin. Probably wasn't Goodwin. Was it Win Godley he was doing it with? Must have been, yeah. Anyway, but they're just in macroeconomics with sort of quasi-equilibrium models.
Okay.
Much better than DSGE models because they were stock flow consistent. So they're doing stock flow consistency, but they weren't using Steve Keen's dynamical system models. This is slightly different modeling, so probably not as good. But maybe Mark's learned from that and is now using Minsky. I hope he is. Yeah. The other thing today was that reading Stephanie Kelton, I reckon, is a good thing to do. She followed up from the debt ceiling with the thing on Social Security, so that's another thing we could talk about if you wanted to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or do you want to go to questions?
Yeah, let me get in. Let me get into 2 questions real quick.
Yeah, get into questions.
But then, yeah, absolutely. We'll queue up the next discussion. Dollar index. I gotta switch screens here. Go to Chrome. We'll transition over. Okay, dollar index. This is literally identical to what I shared during my most recent update in terms of the dollar. This is exactly how I laid it out. Listen, my intuition, my feeling, my ability to understand where the S&P is going to head next, where stocks are going to head next. I mean, I think I have the most amount of data that is the most reliable. Take this with a bit of a grain of salt. And this is more my intuition, my instinct, but I think this is likely how it's going to head. I think we're due for maybe a year-long consolidation, maybe even longer, in the dollar index, where we kind of push sideways. It's no surprise to me that we're finding a little bit of support here. My guess is if you're into Elliott Wave, which admittedly can be a bit kooky at times, but I think it's a good explanation of what's going on. I think we're in a little wave 4 pop here. I think we might make a fresh low in the not too distant future, and then we'll push up for a B wave, maybe back test the kind of head and shoulders ish pattern, the breakdown that we had back in October. But I do think we move sideways from here. Interestingly enough, the data that I think correlates the most is some data that's tucked away deep within the bank float data. That's the foreign sector data. It did kind of anticipate the pop we're seeing in the dollar, so maybe there's something to it. But I'd be surprised if the dollar really takes off here. I think we're going to be it's going to be a pretty big range. I mean, we're going to have the upper end about 113, the lower end is going to be about 100. So, for the dollar index, that's going to be a massive range. But I think over the next, my best guess is that we bounce around this general range for the next year. Without a huge breakaway higher. But if we do break away higher, then I really need to reassess my overall macro thesis, because I think the implication would be much more bearish in the intermediate to long term if we do end up breaking higher. So good question. That's kind of my thought on where we're at with the dollar. Hamel, that's a good comment. That'll be a third hour debate comment right there.
Which one's that one? Yield curve or the trade?
I'm sympathetic to Steve's point, where if you're running a current account deficit, then foreign sector builds up your currency, leading to naturally then purchasing your domestic assets. So I know Bijou will want to talk about that. Let me jump into. Give me a second. Let me see if I can remember where I put that Python project. Oh no, guys, I don't remember.
You go find. I'll just talk on the trade for a sec.
Yeah, let me switch. Can I switch to your tablet? Okay, I'm gonna switch over to your screen there.
Think about the trade and foreign sector building up your currency. Well, they can only. This is what Bill Mitchell takes pains to point out, is that they can only buy what you're prepared to sell them. Right. So if you don't want to sell them your real estate, if you don't want to sell them your politicians, well, then they're not going to be able to buy them. So you've got to have some discipline on what you're willing to sell to foreigners if you don't want their accumulation of your currency to be a problem. So that it becomes a problem if you don't want to discipline yourself. So why would you be doing that? Well, that's probably the definition of a neoliberal, isn't it? They're willing to discipline workers, but they're not willing to discipline, what's for sale in their currency to overseas buyers. And of course, the neoliberal politician pretty much is for sale. So yeah, in a sense, the post-Keynesians and the institutionalists are correct that it's a problem if you allow the foreign sector to accumulate your currency because they do have claims on anything for sale. So discipline has to be, not to discipline your workers and run austerity or to tighten the money supply. It's the idea is to keep price stability going. So you float the currency, you fix the price, float the currency, and use the discipline of the capital controls to stop foreigners buying up your land. This is what we did in New Zealand. You can't. I mean, whoever, what's his name, the movie producer, got in and bought a whole lot of land here. The guy who did the movie Avatar and all that. But
James Cameron did.
Cameron, yeah, bought a big section next to the not next to, but a few hundred kilometers away from, well, not a few tens of kilometers away from the Weta Studios run by what's his name, Lord of the Rings guy.
Peter Jackson.
yeah, I should know. Anyway, we always put a bit of a stop to that in recent years. So that's what I say. So it is a problem. It's a problem of realpolitik, and a matter of governments meeting the needs of the people rather than the needs of the foreigners, I reckon. And again, it's not a criticism of MMT, that whole thing. It's more of a urgent need for understanding MMT, because you know what you can do. You don't need the foreign revenue. You don't need the foreigners buying your land to address the trade. If they're prepared to take your currency off you in return for giving you goods, so that's a win. But you got to understand, the purpose of all of that, and what power the government has if they're running an MMT system, is they can do something about it. They don't have to allow foreigners to just buy up everything. But if they want to, then they can. It's a political choice, I reckon. But it's only you only see it as a political choice if you really understand MMT. So it's more of an argument in favor of MMT rather than against. That's how I look at it. Back to you, Doug. So you find what you were looking for?
I did. Well, I couldn't find the Python notebook, but the Jupyter notebook. But I'll pull up my tweet.
Yeah.
So, okay. So the question was, can I go over this tweet about this time it's different? I was piecing together some data, right? And so I don't even know I don't know what I was doing this for, to be honest. But I ran across something to me that was really interesting as I was piecing together, right? So the yield spread, right? Yield curve inverted. That's a recession. It's 9 out of 10 times over the last 60 years, et cetera, et cetera. But this time it's really different. It's turning out right. I mean, don't get me wrong. When you're a neoclassical or you're monetarist, your time frame to be right is like the next 18 years, right? So I mean, it's going to be a window of 18 years of no recession where they would finally concede that they were actually wrong. So I mean, you're fighting against someone who's never going to admit they're wrong, but it doesn't look like we're getting a recession anytime soon, right? I mean, the employment market's as good as it's ever been, or at least in the last 50 years. So, I mean, the economic data is looking so strong here. And we certainly know that, at least from, an MMT or even a heterodox, endogenous money style perspective, that the recipe for disaster that happened between 2000 and 2008 isn't there. So, I mean, I think we can confidently say that recession seems very unlikely given the current circumstance. I mean, we're always teetering on a private debt issue, right? I mean, that's always a potential, and that's just baked into the economy, from here and until forever, until that whole side of it gets solved. But I was piecing together the data, and I noticed something really interesting. I noticed this correlation, this negative correlation, strong negative correlation between yield spreads and tax receipts. I'm like, wow, this is really interesting. Clearly, what is seen, and I'm not trying to say there's any causation here, but it just intuitively makes sense. Tax receipts push higher, yield curve inverts over time, right? And these track. And part of it would just be that the yield curve is going to invert because economic data starts to get stronger and stronger. And there's the anticipation the Fed is going to want to cool things down, and then they start their cycle, and then all of a sudden you start to just see, because these are usually endogenously driven cycles, right? This is usually bank credit expansion. You start to see a bit of a slowdown. The acceleration begins to slow down, and then you get the boom and bust cycle, right? And so it made sense to me that yield curve is kind of a market anticipation of what the Fed is going to do next. And so you get this inverted yield curve where the 30-year yields and whatnot begin to dip lower and eventually become flat or inverted with the shorter term curves. And you get the inverted yield curve, all that good stuff, right? We know that. And so it makes sense. There's this correlation here that plays out between tax receipts, which is kind of just a measurement of economic activity, and the yield curve inverting over time. And yet we're seeing this exact same pattern play out once again, but we're nowhere clear. We're nowhere clear. We're nowhere near. We're nowhere near a recession. Yeah. And so why is that? And I think the only answer is, the only thing, and MMT completely understands this, is it's like the signal that the market is getting, which is normally this expansion signal of the economy, is not coming from the normal avenue, the normal channel. And that is what the next chart really is trying to show. I guess I'll just bring up the one with the arrows here, is that the expansion that came before the dot-com bubble and before the great financial crisis was an expansion that was endogenously driven. It was a debt-driven bubble, so to speak, right? Same with the 91 recession, which obviously wasn't that bad compared to the dot-com and the great financial crisis. But you'll notice too that the government spending followed the increase in tax receipts. It wasn't the cause of the increase in tax receipts. It followed as a response, right? The automatic stabilizers kicked in. And this time around, it was different. It is different. It's the government spending that increased the tax receipts, right? And that's part of the reason that we had the selling that we saw over the last year, and part of the reason that we saw this contraction in growth over the last years. It was those tax receipts that pushed that rate of change down, right? That removed the acceleration function. But since it wasn't coming from the business cycle, it wasn't coming from that very fragile endogenous cycle, right? It was coming from the banking sector, or coming from the government sector that already had in place the next flow to replenish it. in the barrel, ready to go. That's coming through. And then when you add on top of that the monetary policy decision to start to hike the interest rates, right? You're just adding fuel into a fire that never went away. And so that fire is going to start burning. That's why this time is different. It's what caused the tax receipts to churn higher that is ultimately the reason why we're not seeing a recession when all the recession indicators are blinking, that the monetarists and the neoclassicals have pieced together, because their models don't distinguish between private sector debt creation and the public debt, because they don't have a clue what MMT actually is. They don't have a clue about balance sheets. To steal one of my Twitter trolls' famous phrases, they're just wrong. I mean, they're just wrong on this, and they don't get it. And they're looking at this inverted yield curve, and they're looking at this data thinking recession, and it's the exact opposite. It's the exact opposite because of that. So watch tomorrow, an asteroid's going to hit, and we're going to have a recession. But the data is there's a reason it's different this time, and that's the explanation behind that tweet that I apparently couldn't. But now that I get 4,000 words a tweet, I can I can fit it in. I can fit it in.
It's such an MMT Kane story. It is causing so much confusion because people just don't understand. But it's like you don't want to have another global flu pandemic to repeat the experiment. It's like it's very different this time. But the reason was because of COVID. So, I think the lesson is, imagine what would happen if you didn't have COVID, but we had this government stimulus without the COVID. Then you could get some massive inflation, but of course people can't buy any goods that aren't for sale. So there'd be also a lot of debt paying off. A lot of student debt would go away.
Yeah,
a lot of mortgage debt would go away. And people, like I said a few weeks ago, people can't eat more than 2 or 3 hamburgers a day. So there's limits to the real goods that can be consumed. But then, imagine if we didn't have COVID, we had the stimulus, but not only that, it wasn't just a handout. Maybe it employed people to, very unskilled people, let's be honest, to just start working on solarization of the electric grid, green energy, just start working on that, or employ the army to do that instead of fighting other wars or whatever. And imagine the currency injection was actually for actual infrastructure, like they keep saying they want to in the press or on the news, but they never actually do it. Imagine that. Imagine how much better off it will be. And to hell with the inflation. We don't care about nominal inflation as long as the real wage is going up, and the investment is creating energy security for the future. Imagine that. By the way, when Ty says that he hopes MMT does live into the future, and that, but being a history buff, you look at the old paradigm never seems to die. Well, the old paradigms do die. Neoclassical economics is, in historical terms, is a fairly young paradigm, and certainly it came out of certain changes in the economic systems and so forth. And so MMT can also make a change, but also history is only a guide. It's like we're not condemned to repeat history, and certainly if we have another flu pandemic, or if we have a series of climate and ecological catastrophes, then regardless of our pathetic efforts as MMT educators and activists, things are going to change anyway. We're not going to be able to help it. So I would say the effort has to be to try and make the change happen now. If we're not successful, well, that's just too bad. But we've got to try, because you don't want to let it be ecological catastrophe that shifts makes the paradigm shift if you can help it, right? That would be the.
I hope you're. I mean, it's kind of one of these things though, where it's like we've lulled ourselves into just a it's good enough attitude when it comes to this economics. I mean, we've talked about this before, where there's just enough people that are
Good
comfortable.
enough economics.
Yeah, I mean, they're just comfortable enough with the fact that they're middle class, they're the main voting bloc, and
Yeah.
there's no existential threat. So why
Yeah.
vote it? Why vote a difference at this point? And I, obviously there's some extremes in politics right now, but for the most part, there's. I didn't watch much of the State of the Union, but it doesn't look like the economics between the left and the right really seem that far off. I mean, I know.
I wouldn't call them the left.
Yeah.
The left is pro-worker. You got to remember that. So when you call Democrats the left, it's a wrong, false language.
Well, whoever's who,
anyway,
it doesn't seem like there is. From my perspective, is a Jedi. From my perspective, they're really not that far off, because I mean they're still talking about taxes. They're still talking about taxing the rich and all that sort of stuff. It doesn't matter. I mean, what matters is maximizing real output. Screwing somebody.
I
don't know.
Yeah, macro terms maybe, but like if you read Stephanie Kelton, there's certainly those worrying differences. I mean, if they cut social security, it could be a real catastrophe for some of the elderly, or at least the younger generation. Actually, maybe even worse, because if they have to use private pension funds, some will win and some will lose.
Well, I mean, the other thing too is I've paid into my Social Security. Those are my tax dollars.
Paid into it, sort of, but what they're not going to give it back to you. Yeah, I know. I realize that's the whole stupidity of it, right?
Real quick,
somehow you gave the government its own
currency back. Yeah, they couldn't fund it without my money. Real quick, one of the things I just wanted to point out, because Hamel, you brought up a couple good points just about how there was kind of the 91 you saw deficit spending pick up, and did that leave tax receipts? Just not to the extent. I mean, it wasn't tax receipts weren't a 1-to-1 comparison, and I know this is rate of change, so it's a little cheating a little bit here, but both in percent change and also in just the nominal level or the actual level, a lot of the tax receipts were drained from the private sector on its own growth endogenously. So yeah, I mean, certainly the stimulus that happened after the dot-com bubble gave a bit of a lift for about 2, 3, 4 years into 2008, the great financial crisis. And certainly after the 91 recession, or whatever that was, 91, 92 recession, same idea. But all the tax receipts this time around almost came entirely from, I mean, there's a bit of a bank credit expansion, but almost everything came from the fiscal channel. So good point. It's obviously there's a lot more to the dynamics that are playing out than just this one chart, but I mean, good point. Let's see.
All right.
What else do we got for the night? Did any other questions come up? I'm going to switch over to the chat while we talk a little bit. Sorry, guys. I'm looking back at the chat. Okay, you mentioned a Kelton blog. Is there anything else that you wanted to hit on?
I don't know. I just encourage people to phone their congressional representatives and give them an earful or something. Do some social media activism there. But I can put this on screen if you want to put this on screen.
Yep.
There's a pop quiz for everyone here.
Yeah. Hey, Josh, I do remember. I mean, I've heard him tell that story. Yeah. Pretty wild.
Yeah.
You know, right. I wonder if our guest next week might have some insights on that story. I think our guest next week.
Pop quiz. Who wrote this in the premier academic journal of unquantifiable information? Anyone? I better pull up the chat. Anyone got any responses in the chat here?
All right, I'm going to read it out loud here. The Social Security trust funds are the accounting record of the difference between dollars subtracted from workers' accounts and dollars added to the accounts of the beneficiaries. There is nothing in them or not in them. Constraints on spending are entirely political. All right, I read it out loud, but I didn't. Oprah. I didn't
Josh
actually.
got it.
Yeah, we're gonna give some Doug points out here to the actual person
Doug
who can
points.
guess it without going to Chat GPT or Google. I have to reread it now, actually, so I understand. The security trust funds are the accounting records.
Okay.
The dollars subtracted from the workers' accounts, the dollars added to the accounts of beneficiaries. There's nothing in them. I mean, the in them or not in them.
In them or not in them means like
No. I'm saying that sounds very
gold.
yeah.
It's score points.
We have a Greenspan. We have.
It does sound a lot like Greenspan.
We have a Larry. We have a Larry Summers.
Oh god, since multiple choice is gonna have to be more than 3 or 4.
Any other guesses? I don't know.
You could put it like doing it the hard way is more interesting, I reckon. So instead of Chat GPT or Google, put it into a text analyzer and see if it's like Shakespeare or Bacon or whoever. I'm pretty sure you could it would come up with the man. So
I mean, when I read, there's nothing in them or not in them. That's exactly what Mosler would say.
That's exactly what Mosler. That's his lingo. Yeah, that's his style of writing.
Yeah.
But of course, I'm the Mosler bot in your basement, so it could be me. Could be me.
All right. When I type in the Social Security Trust Fund, the first thing that comes up into Google is expected to be depleted.
It wasn't a trick question. You're supposed to go and read Stephanie Kelton's piece. And then,
oh, this is in her piece. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't give my students questions that I haven't already answered in the lecture. No trick questions.
Have we had a right answer then?
Yeah, they're all right in a sense because they're all joking. Except Ken PDX, who said Greenspan, because actually it might have been Greenspan. But if you just know the language, use of the language, there is definitely, as Douglas said, Greenspan would have said it slightly differently. Like he would have said it with a very anti-worker twist on it. It's like, you damn workers, you need to go back to work to provide the goods the retirees can get with their endless supply of money we can give them if we wanted to give them. So yeah, it's there'd be a slightly different emphasis, I think, if Greenspan had written it or said it.
Well, Google's not finding the quote.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, try DuckDuckGo. Yeah. So anyway, does Google not rake in or data mine Twitter these days? What's going on?
That was on Twitter?
Yeah, it's a tweet. It's a tweet.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, moving on.
Well,
we'll find out next. We'll find out.
We're going to find out next week.
Different bat time, different MMT time, different MMT channel. How about this one? What do you think of this? So this is Sam Levy.
Oh, I found the tweet. Never mind. I am.
You got it. Okay.
God,
it took you a while. Jeez. Google food not working today.
Yes, I am just actually getting this in. You are correct, Ken. It was, in fact, George Santos said this at the State of the Union last night. That is correct.
God.
We found the right answer.
Is the debate about Social Security at least an interesting one to be having because it draws the attention to the lunatics? I don't know. Maybe that's a bit too risky for me to say that. But every time you have a debt ceiling debate or a Social Security solvency debate, it seems to me it's always an opportunity for MMT and the more sensible post-Keynesians who understand it's not really FICA tax funded. All this is Social Security is funded in real terms by people working today, providing the goods that retirees desire to consume. So I think it's always a useful kind of debate that Republicans are giving everyone. It just makes them seem more and more crazy, and it gives the MMT people a chance to at least say something in the debate. Because the problem is obscurity. If no one's saying anything stupid, then in a way we've kind of either won the debate, or we've all been assassinated, and we don't even exist. So yeah. Did I see Microsoft adding ChatGPT? I don't know. Could be.
They did.
I don't use Bing or any of that stuff.
They added ChatGPT. I have some thoughts about this. We can go forward. Well, do you want me to derail us right now and talk AI for a minute?
Unless you got something just to add to Sam's comments on the rates there. There were some other people contributing to say, well, what about the up and down of the rates? And I think I've already said that before, but
Yeah.
just to make the point is that interest rates don't have much of a lending borrowing effect, because for everyone who's now paying a higher interest rate on their debt, there's someone else who's wanting to save for some future items, big ticket items, and they're going to find it harder to save, so they're going to withdraw more of their income to put into the savings in order to, because usually people are saving big like that, they're saving with a time frame in mind. And all of the research seems to be that those effects do tend to cancel each other out. I don't know if that's fully Sam's third point there, but there is a cancelling out effect, and so the overall macro effect of interest rates is not as big as the monetarists and neoclassicals think. And it takes a long time for the rate hikes to kick in to crush people in debt. So fixed rate lending and all that has to be changed and refinanced. Same thing if you go in the opposite direction. If you go down to zero rates, people will refinance, so they'll have maybe more disposable income. But the other side of the equation is the savers now have to put away more of their income in order to meet their savings goals or targets, particularly retirees, which is to the point that we've just been talking about, who are not using, not relying on the government pensions. So the first order effect of interest rates, the first order effect in short term is always if the government debt, outstanding debt, is pretty high as a percentage of GDP, it's always going to be net injection of currency into the economy. So if you think first order fiscal flows, that is the effect to focus on, and it's pro-stimulus, pro-inflationary bias. Not that it's going to cause it's not going to cause CPI to go up. It's not a causal thing. It's just a bias. If people save all of their income earnings and don't spend it, well, then there's only going to be a second order effect on inflation, if at all. But it certainly has a very first order or almost zeroth order effect on the prices for all the forward contracts and the term structure of prices. So I think Douglas had a pretty good reply to the guy on Twitter on that. That was a different thread to this one.
A sub-thread. Yeah,
it was a different one. Yeah.
That
was all good. But that's all that technical stuff. Unless anyone's got any questions of that, we could go to the AI question.
Yeah.
Do you want to go full derail now?
Yeah, we can get off the rails a little bit as we're heading into the third hour.
Let's do it.
Let's see. I'll pull up the chat here. First thoughts on AI. I'll tell you what. Again, I don't look at individual companies. I know that. Let's see. The one I'm talking about. I'll pull it up on the screen here. God, let me get my thought together. I know everyone's like, oh, ChatGPT, Microsoft. Okay, so a year ago, we were just starting down the path of AI images, and they were like kitschy style novel trinkets, right? The text to image AI stuff. Chat or Stable Diffusion can now do photorealistic images, right? I mean, within 1 year, we went from just kitschy pictures of ourselves that had some AI overlay that was kind of neat to, like, we've mastered images, right? We barely need anything better than what we have in terms of being able to
What?
do
So
images.
someone who can type can suddenly paint
Yeah, exactly. But and even better than
a Rembrandt.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, than the toothpaste. Um, but here's my point. Like, and then Chat GPT-2 came out in the end of 2019, and by the beginning of 2023, even by the end of 2022, we had Chat GPT-3 out, and that took like a year, right? And Chat GPT-3 is awesome. I mean, it's if you're not using it as part of your workflow for whatever it is you're doing, like trust me when I tell you, this thing can work for you, and it's only in its infancy. So I mean, this is a pace that we're going at, and on top of that, all these learning models are taking in the data that you're putting into it to train even better. You're only going to continue to see this exponential growth. But I'll tell you why not to sleep on Google, because we are just starting to see video AI production begin to kick off, text to or prompt to video, and who's sitting on the stash of videos that can be used to train AI models, but Google, right? So it's only going to be a matter of time. And they have my videos. I mean, they have my videos to train on. So it's only going to it's only going to be a matter of time, I think, before Google figures out, as technology ramps up, that what's really going to be the AI bot that kills all AI bots is voice to text. And then that text generation creates some sort of video output. So, hey, Google, how do I fix my faucet? I have an ABC company faucet from 1999, and it can auto produce that video, right? I would hazard a guess to say that's 2 to 3 years out. That technology will be 2 to 3 years out at the current pace at which we're seeing things, where our Google anything that has a Google tablet can produce something like that. Maybe I might be a little optimistic, but at the pace at which we're seeing this, so that's why I think don't count Google out at this point, because it's only a matter of time before they start making video off the prompts.
But also the Chat GPT or OpenAI and that. There's a guy I sometimes look at, Yannick Kilcher. He's a good sort of more of a free Libre software guy, I guess. Or he's an academic, and he's trying to lead a charge to produce a public version of some of these bots, Chat GPT and
Nano GPT is out. If this is stuff that so I do despite my picking on what's his face in the Twitter thread, I do have a day job and I love it. I mean, I have a team. They're awesome. What I do, I am not going to speak too much about exactly what I do, but it serves a really good public purpose, and we're starting to tiptoe into the AI world. And I can tell you, Nano GPT is a great tool if you're looking at wanting to implement Chat GPT style stuff, and you have a training set that is already labeled for you, both input and output. Check it out if it's something you're interested in.
Yeah, there'll be it takes a while, but there will be more community efforts and collaborative stuff that you don't have to pay for. The trouble is someone always pays for the electricity bills, whereas if you spend like a minute Googling or DuckDuckGo to find the video helper that you need, that's very low energy usage. So I'm not a scaremonger or anything, but I do worry. I do worry about electricity just being eaten up by AI systems, and in a way, I can see it exploding far worse than cryptocurrency wastage of electricity.
Yeah.
I'm not predicting it's a problem. I don't even know what the current electricity
this is
on AI.
This is a really stupid.
It's something I worry about.
This is a really stupid question, but you might have thought this through. I mean, I'm obviously expending energy, right? What I mean,
like a light bulb.
Are you calling me a light bulb?
Yeah, yeah. What is it? Copper top.
uh, I guess what I'm saying is let's just say there's a task that I could solve without ever using AI, right? And then there's a task that AI does for me. Obviously, there's an electricity draw, right? There's a resource draw that will be there every time AI steps in to do it for me. But wouldn't I be expending more energy in the amount of time it would take me to? I mean, okay, maybe I'm not the best example of this because you've seen how long it takes me to figure out some pretty simple tasks. But if a normal person, I mean, aren't they expending less energy just letting AI do it, right? Even if it's
not necessarily.
Okay.
Himel's got what I was going to say there. It's running versus training, so very different. So when you're training,
okay.
You know, you need to crunch a whole lot of numbers. Once you've trained it, then you've canned it.
Yeah.
Okay. Then to use the AI is pretty.
I get what you're saying. Yeah.
But the trouble is people don't understand. Truly artificial general intelligence, like human level ability to solve novel problems, that is constant training, right? It's not just checking trillions of parameters of the problem. But every time you have anything significant to do, it's going to require a huge amount of electricity. But I agree with you, and this is Himmel's point, is that for a lot of routine tasks that can be trained, and then that's it, trained once and forget it. A lot of assistants in that sense are not going to be AI. It's just wrong to call them AI. They're just canned, like they become like the old 1980s expert systems because they've been trained, they've had all the data fed into them, they can do certain routine tasks, and that's where you get the big payoff, and you just put in the energy once. Put in the energy once and forget it. And I think I totally agree with you. It's like more of those, please. Because they can be huge labor savers and free up people to do all sorts of things. We were just talking about this before we came on live stream, weren't we?
Yeah. No, it's
the whole thing. Labor saving.
Yeah. Actually, Josh, I think has a question that gets to that. Well, no, I mean it's not exactly, but yeah, I mean it's one of the many issues that AI is.
Let me just jump on Ty there a little bit. AI will use more energy, yes, for the training, but once it's trained, it's no longer AI. This is what you got to think. It's no longer artificial intelligence. It's not intelligent at all. Once you trained it, it's canned. It's just an expert system. And then it's using very little energy. It's basically doing what you and I would do, just looking up Google, but in a much quicker time. However,
so what you're saying is AI,
the engineers in Google go wild, right? And they just make everything AI all the time. That's just completely nuts.
So AI could end up using more energy when it's all said.
Could end up more energy,
depending on how
people just let it go like Bitcoin. Yeah.
So kind of interestingly, when Josh says, "Do you think the expansion in AI will lead lawmakers to be forced to look at copyright laws?" Really, they actually probably will be focused on copyright laws, but the real question is going to be: there's now this potential for everyone to make these AI models that are extremely resource intensive, and everyone's just going to be doing it all the time to make their lives easier, and that's really what maybe we need to put a constraint on, because we're going to have Google decide that it's going to use the entire library of all YouTube videos of all time to constantly train AI models on, and their energy bill is going to be, higher than the grow center down the down the street. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Sense.
Read Cory Doctorow's stuff on that too, and there's stuff at the Free Software Foundation probably as well. There are people that are looking into these ethical issues about infringing on creators' rights and so forth. I mean,
go ahead. Give me your take first. I have my thought on this, and then I'll
I don't know.
I'll give mine.
My take might be a little politically incorrect. I don't know. I mean, once you create, say, a pop song, yes, it took you a long time to do it and so forth. But I think the idea there is that if you want to commodify your art, make it a one-time thing.
A performance.
Don't rely on licensing and continuing extract money that way. Just leave it exist for free use. So the purpose of copyright law in the first place was supposed to be to protect the artists, not to protect music publishers. You see, so it's all been twisted around. And if the lawmakers understand this, and they get it right, it can be made more ethical and more friendly to the artists and creators. Although they're exploitable, right? Because any artist, I know because I'm a scientist, any scientist or any artist has what's called, I forget the term for it. Cory Doctorow has he knows all the jargon, right? There's a term for it. It's something like work or creative.
I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
I forget what it is. It's not weakness or exploitation. It's a geek term for the fact that some people work for nothing just because they love the work.
Yeah.
So there's a long way of putting it. And so I do worry about all these ethical issues. I don't think I fully answered the question, but I think there are ways around it for having public support for artists, right? So you pay the artists to work, they create, they don't have to constantly rely on royalties. That'd be my take.
My take is political will. My take is kind of similar as well when it comes to the copyright issue, is that once it's out for public consumption, it gets out for public consumption. And the only thing to a certain extent, I understand what human learning is, how it's different. I think Bijou and I might have a little bit of philosophical disagreement in terms of exactly how different human learning is from machine learning. But the human learning process is not too dissimilar from what the machine learning process is. And so, I mean, if you're going to make it illegal copyright-wise to look at to have a machine look at a picture that is online that's been snapped for free, right? So I mean, it has the little watermark, but obviously AI can remove that watermark now and use it for a deep learning model. Then you have to then train ultimately to a new prompt to make some new image out of it. Then you have to say a human can't do that either, because the process is not dissimilar enough, right? To say, I have an idea for a painting I want to make. I'm going to go generate some thoughts on how I want to make this thing, and I get that it's a machine versus a human, but once the thumbnail is out there to view, it's out there to view. I mean, you put it out there for free consumption, and someone's allowed to take your work and make a derivative work out of your work. That's protected fair use stuff. So my hope is that the law sides with an argument like myself. If the AI bots went in and used content that you had to pay for and just didn't tell anybody, then I think that there might be a bigger legal battle there. But those are we're gonna find out. And the other thing too, and I mean, there have been some people who've been on the edge of this and have been saying look, AI is gonna come faster than the government can handle, and I think we're starting to see it. It's here, and I don't think society is ready for how fast this is going to come from a legal and justice structure.
Justice, and I think we need to expand our whole view of what art is and the relationship of artists to society. Are they just there to create high works of art for the cognoscenti, or can art perform a public service as well to enrich people's lives? And if it does, then you can always put artists on a public salary. I know that it sounds horrendous to libertarians, classicals, but it's the practical reality is that I value our national symphony orchestra and a national ballet company, even though I hardly ever go to watch them, right? But a lot of people do, and they appreciate it. And it's in New Zealand, at least, it's almost not even a second thought that the government, funds some of their salaries or whatever. I mean, they do still sell concert tickets, of course, but also that's what artists could do. They've always, you don't have to just create a pop song and then just sit on your ass and just expect to earn $1 million, because suddenly you're free from the music industry corruption in contracts and basically theft, as Cory Doctorow would say, of your rightful income. If you're free from the music publishers, it doesn't just give you a right to earn royalties forever, just because you created one or two really good pop songs. How about performing like a public service and going out and doing what a good rock and roll band would do and entertain people live? You can sell tickets and earn your income that way. But yeah, there's a whole lot of really good issues, and I think Josh is right there. Cory Doctorow's interview on the Sam Seedless thing was pretty good.
Bijou, I think you're making the case. I think if I was tracking it, you're actually making the case.
Don't tell me.
I think you're making the case that we actually need to take our show on the road and do a.
Oh yeah, we have to go perform live.
Do a live stream tour. We're coming to your city.
It could well be. Well, I mean, I'm not taking any royalties off this, so I'm not quite at the touring
when I
stage
finally monetize this channel and we start getting super chats and royalties. Then we will need, to shake the 30% that YouTube takes. Then we will finally have to go on the road.
Scare me, man. If I have to start thinking about making money off being funny and commenting on serious macroeconomics at the same time, I'm in serious trouble. I'm gonna be very depressed, and the suicide option starts to look like a good way out of all this.
You know what? We can go on I'll tell you the real gurus. You're getting old when you start offering this. The real gurus offer a cruise week. As well, with full instruction. So it'll be the MMT Macro Trader live stream cruise.
Man,
that will do, and that's how we'll generate live entertainment.
As long as they got internet on the cruise ship, as long as it's like a kilometer long, so it doesn't sway up and down with the waves. The seasick pills. Oh gosh, that's hilarious. That's an image I've never thought about before.
What was the?
Take it on the cruise ship.
Take it on a cruise ship. Take the live stream on the cruise ship. Yeah.
Mm.
Well, let me know. Let me know if that's something you guys would be interested in. I can
book early.
Just for the record, you can love cruise ships all you want. The idea of a cruise ship to me is just I am a germaphobe.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
It just isn't my thing.
It's pretty bad, but some people love it. Yeah.
Oh, look at this. This is really cool. John just asked a question that I want to get to, but then just for the record. By the way, if you ever do have a question that you want answered, as it turns out, I turned on this thing, and this is really cool. It'll highlight the word question. So make sure you put, hey, I've got a question. If you really need it answered, put question in it, and then it highlights it on my chat, and it just works. So Hamel, even though you're not asking a question, you're referencing another question. That actually worked. Does anyone have any literature suggesting that discusses the link between higher Fed rates and increased demand? How are higher interest payments going from institutional accounts to retail? Question. Yeah, you guys are gonna bug me with the yellow stuff now, but thank you, Ty. The increased demand. Bijou is going on just a question. Oh God, I shouldn't have brought that up. Now everyone's gonna hack the question. Bijou was going on a little bit about the demand versus the savings demand versus the other call it goods demand. I don't know the opposite of say the spending increase. About 30 minutes ago, if you rewind a little bit, I think you can catch that. But if you want to give a summary about the dynamics there, or maybe you don't remember.
I was looking at, but. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm looking at it. Thing is, if the government the debt to GDP ratio is above about 50%, then the government is a huge net payer of interest into the economy. Now, the question is, people who are earning that interest from the government debt, are they going to spend it and increase demand, or they're just going to save it for the future? Well, no one can really say. So so the other thing is that on the other side, what about people in debt? If the interest rate goes up, they're not going to be wanting to refinance. So if they can, they'll just stay with the mortgage rate that they previously had. But people who need to spend on credit, use their credit card, would be the main channel there, is they're going to go into higher debt at a rate that if their other income doesn't support, then sooner or later they're going to start paying off that debt. But that takes a fair amount of time. And then the third thing is, what about the people who are already trying to save? Interest rate goes down. Now they're going to have to put away more in savings. So the lower interest rate isn't going to necessarily increase demand that way through credit, because now savers have a problem. But then increasing the rates, again, there's two sides of the story. It's people who are in debt, need to get in more in debt, can't just refinance, they're going to have a higher rate to pay. But then people who have saved maybe stop putting their money into stocks, put them into bonds or whatever it is, they'll make the calculation, they'll get more interest income. So it's a repeller effect. It hurts the poor, benefits the rich. So which way does it go? Well, the research, I think, and I was just trying to pull it up, but give me a second after I stop talking. So the effect there is like it almost cancels out, and that's the empirical data. Unless the rate hikes are changed in a drastic way, really dramatically, you don't see much of an effect through savings versus borrowers. But you do always see first order or even zeroth order. You always see interest income going into the economy if the government has a high debt to GDP ratio above about 50-60%. I'll put in the link to that research in a second. And for this term structure of prices that Douglas tweet about, Warren Moses endlessly talked about, it just creates a term structure of prices so that in the future, well, if you've got a certain amount of commodity, some corn or whatever you want to sell on the spot market today at a certain price, but the interest rate is going to be hiked up or has been hiked up, but you want to sell it tomorrow, or you're the buyer, you're going to buy it tomorrow. Two things, both seller and buyer are going to look ahead at the time where you have the contract where the actual transaction is going to take place, and you're just going to make the calculation that it instantly increase the price that you're going to pay on the forward market. So that way, the question was, does it increase demand? It certainly increases prices, right? And it certainly increases demand at the top end of town in the people who've got the bonds. So it increases demand there. And people who don't have enough money to buy bonds, what's happened to their demand? Well, they're still going to demand goods. So they're just going to take out the credit at the higher rate and suffer the consequences until that breaks down.
So I don't know if my answer is right, but I've never put it through the necessary rigor to.
Well, it's a complicated thing.
Yeah, but
it's a dynamical system.
Here's how I think what's happening. The interest rate gets hiked. The immediate effect is a repricing of assets. Not necessarily for this discussion at this point, right? But there will be a knock-on effect. That actually gets to a question that we missed above about the white-collar recession, but I'll get back to that in a second. But the next effect is the term structure prices, and this kind of is happening at the same time. That's going to get increased. Okay, so you now have an increase in the term structure prices. The future cost of doing business is now going up. Okay. That also means that there is an immediate, the first knock-on effect is going to be that everyone's cost of doing business is going to go higher. It's going to cost more to buy a new home. It's going to cost, the term structure prices has now gone higher. So there will be wage pressure up, right? And we're seeing that, right? We're seeing a revision higher in wages. Everyone, instead of getting a 2% raise like they have for the last 2 years, 10 years, whatever, right? With the cost of living, all of a sudden they're getting a 5%, a 6% cost of living increase, right? Why? Because that's where interest rates are at. So now all of a sudden they need more money to to buy stuff because this term structure prices. Now, the thought would be that the higher interest rates will just cut demand enough, right? So the demand side quashes the continued increase of output. But we know that as the interest rate gets pushed higher, the supply of the new income is following right behind that, right? So yes, we see this repricing of assets lower, but we see the term structure prices pushing higher. We see everyone now demanding higher wages to all keep up with that, right? Not only workers, but also business owners are going to demand higher prices for everything that they're going to be purchasing, right? From their from their customers, right. So you see the spiral higher as rates get pushed higher. And then we also know then, as rates continue to push higher, that's going to only continue to push the term structure further and further higher the further out you go. And then it becomes an upward spiral, right? And that is where the demand comes from. And this is actually, what we would say is kind of the good side of inflation, is it's forcing people to get rid of their money now as opposed to later. And that's not necessarily bad. Now, it's bad if you implement policies that decrease the real output of the economy. If you do that, that's a terrible thing, right? I mean, you will get a deflationary recession event to come out of that, unemployment, right? But as long as the real output continues to meet that increase in what's being seen as inflation, as in this new demand, then you'll just get an economy to run hot for a while.
Yeah.
So I think that's the step-by-step transmission to what we would call is just new demand coming from this process. Now, it is not the best way to go about.
Not the best way to go about it, especially if wage demands are weak. There is certainly demand for wages, but the real wage has not been that. Wage demands have not. Are only demands at this stage. They haven't been realized.
I mean, look, what Bijou was saying is absolutely how it's actually going to turn out. Listen, I get really hyped up on Twitter about how the economy is doing better than expected. What I really mean is I'm making boatloads on my leveraged S&P position because these doofuses in policy, that are making policy decisions have the slightest clue what they're doing. I'm also not unaware, and listen, I'm an advocate for the little guy here. I would love one day for my ability to exploit stocks to go away, because I know that would just be better for all of society. But what Bijou was saying is absolutely correct. It is a repeller and a retractor happening at the same time. It's as I've been learning in deep learning, it's kind of like a gradient descent that has two little bowls in it, and you get stuck in the wrong spot, and your learning model can't learn anymore. It's that sort of problem where for the bottom 50%, it's only going to squeeze them more and more, but at the aggregate macro level, what's going to happen is overall more demand being pushed higher until the system breaks. But the system's going to break because of many other dynamics that are actually taking place, not just the interest rate going higher. So I hope that answered your question, John. It's a really good question. Yeah.
But there is trickle down, right? So as Josh says, tweet quoting Warren, I guess, on the sales of Rolls Royces going up, right? Yeah. So there you may be seeing some interest income being used to support some consumer spending up the top end of town. But how do Rolls Royces get made? Well, they're not all made by robots yet. So you've got workers in the factories still producing the Rolls Royce, so they get an income, and maybe their wage demand is satisfied, right? So wherever the sales are being made, the wage demand can be supported. But the smaller firms, mum and pops and all that, who aren't necessarily seeing the effects of a strong economy, are not making sales, and so are not, maybe they've only got one or two employees, so they're not seeing a lot, and so they're getting crushed. There's just no doubt about it that it's an attractor to the wealthy and a repeller away from middle class prosperity for the poor. It's a repeller dynamic. Not the way you want to stimulate the economy, but there's no doubt, as Douglas has pointed out, it is stimulating the economy. Not the way you want to.
Not the way you want to.
What you can do about it.
Yeah.
So you got to be active and yeah, spread the word on how to actually better stimulate the economy. There were some other questions here.
Do we have anything else? What
So
percent of the
welcome,
revenue
Ryan.
comes from luxury?
Ken made a comment before on Social Security. I wanted to kind of maybe highlight that.
Yeah, jump back.
About FDR, going back a bit.
Okay.
You hear that a lot, that FDR knew that you don't need taxes to pay Social Security, and it can never become insolvent. But it is this political psychology that because people think that they're paying into Social Security, and everyone, the system makes it look as though you are, it's going to keep Social Security alive. But I prefer, I'd be, I think, with more Warren on this, although you could ask her, well, I don't know who our guest is next week, but suppose it was...
Jeez, man! Oh my god! Oh, if you made it this long in the live stream,
go to email Warren and email Warren. He replies to polite emails, and he advertises his email. So yeah, ask him what he thinks about Social Security, because I would say I prefer an informed electorate. And so I think it's terrible that people think that they're paying into Social Security. I think it's a regressive thing. So I agree with Ken, PDX, and at the same time, I disagree. So there you go. That's like general covariance in macroeconomic understanding. I rotate my coordinate system to agree with Ken. Yes, that's the current political psychology. But then I'll rotate it back to MMT and say, I prefer an informed electorate that understands MMT. I know that that's not where we're at right now, but still, that's what I'm going to constantly, my whole life, work for, that people understand that, Social Security and pension payments, they can never go broke, they can never be insolvent, and there's no pay-in needed. There's just a waste of bureaucratic effort. But yeah. That's good. My rant on that.
Yeah.
Back to the next question.
Sounds good. I think we've hit most of the questions tonight.
All right.
Let's see. Oh yeah, good job. Question, and I saw it. It popped up. Josh. It highlighted.
It doesn't highlight for me.
It doesn't. No, I'm gonna get you. I gotta get you hooked up with the app.
It's okay.
It's pretty. Oh, you'd have to use Google Chrome.
Yeah.
You'll live, right?
I can open Chrome. It's not 100% proprietary software, so I could probably compromise.
Oh yeah. Oh, this is a great question for Bijou. Okay. And I actually know the answer to this as well. But you know what? I have to take a 2-minute break. So
okay.
I'm gonna let Bijou wax eloquently on nuclear.
Go ahead, take your break. I'm interested in your answer to it.
Well, let me give my answer before I leave, because you actually have the right answer.
Don't count on it.
But do you have? I mean, you're aware of the claim, right? The nuclear fusion claim that some lab out in California was able to get free.
I don't know the numbers.
Yeah.
Break even for what, a minute, or what was it?
It was a couple seconds. Well, I'm sure the one lady that we watched that we really liked, the physics lady,
Sabina.
Yeah. She had a video on this, I know.
Yeah. It was interesting.
But you go. You wax eloquently.
No, I want you to hear mine so that you can respond.
Okay. Well, I'll wait to refill the water and yell at my kids. Then they get a few minutes on bedtime.
Or can I let you go and then come back?
No. We can talk. It's fine.
Okay.
My thought on this is, or did you want to give yours first?
I don't know now. It's not a contest. Okay. So my thing is that people don't really understand all of the potential problems with fusion. So my number one thing I want to highlight is we've already got a great fusion reactor, and it's a few billion kilometers away or whatever, but we should use that first. If we do need to supplement energy with some form of nuclear power here on Earth, I'm just very skeptical about fusion. So it's really amazing that they control the plasma. They use AI Well, they use some very sophisticated software now. You know, they use the magnetohydrodynamic equations and that along with some sort of AI system to in real time, like quell the instabilities in the fusion reactor and using just tuning the magnets and so forth. So that's just so I don't know how to put it. It's just so super awesome. It's like a physics geek, wet dream. It's just so amazing, and it's like you could say, okay, so that's basically it. Now they just have to improve that, and they can. You can see now the technological path to getting a fusion reactor running. Whatever you need to do. I forget what it is, but they have to run fairly 27-hour a day-ish to be viable, I think. But you can see where the trajectory is now, that fusion isn't just a pipe dream. But the thing is, all of the other physics and engineering, the engineering is a big issue because fusion reactor is a damn evil system and it radiates the hell out of everything around it. And so you don't have, it's not a wasteless system. I mean, it's no better in a sense than a clunky old plutonium reactor because it still generates huge amount of radioactive waste in a different way. So the fuel is, converted, but the surrounding walls, the containment vessel and all that is getting massive doses of gamma radiation, neutron radiation, and that eventually is going to get brittle and erode. And so there's all these engineering challenges that I don't know. I think I'm just a little suspicious that some of the physicists and engineers are like a little bit devious here. They're selling the idea of fusion to get research funding.
Oh my God, that's the answer. That's my answer.
Okay.
Good. let me think. But you said there was one that we don't in America. We have these things called miles, not kilometers. So I don't know how to. I don't know how to convert. But you said a couple billion away. Did Musk finally build that fusion reactor on Mars? Is that what you meant? I'll have to put that in Google to figure out to do the conversion for me.
Briny orb.
Can I like that? So yeah, my understanding is when I saw this, I hope we find Pandora's box and are able to, well, not Pandora's box. I hope we're able to find the breakthrough that finally solves our energy needs, and if we can do nuclear fusion with minimal impact, all that sort of stuff. But my understanding is the crew that put this paper out, like every decade puts a new paper out that says, hey, we finally did this really cool thing. And it just coincides with the last huge funding that they had every 10 years. And apparently they've reproduced effectively the same research for the third time now, that this is this will be going on their fourth decade of similar research. So
it'd get real interesting if it's correlated with IPCC output reports. But that's another interesting thing is that there's also the whole thing to do with these low-tech mirrors, which are made out of, I forget what they're made out of now, but they're not like brittle glass, but mirrors that can reflect a lot of heat. They're basically just using an albedo effect. But I think trapping solar energy and then radiating it out to space in lower frequency, is just a matter of punching a hole through the atmosphere to do that, right? And so there's a nice confluence there of technologies that can be trapping solar energy for our use, not just reflecting it away and saying, away you go with the sun. But if the solar rays of the sun are important to us precisely because they come from a single point in the sky. The problem is if the Earth was radiated like in a sphere by a spherical sort of orb that was just completely illuminated around the whole full solid angle of 4 pi, radian squared or whatever it is, that would be completely useless to us. We'd die. The reason the sun is useful is it comes from a point source, so it's very high, very low entropy or high exergy, And so it's just a resource sitting there for us to use. It's powered the earth for so many, billions of years, life on earth. And we just got to use it in a better way. Instead of just reflecting it away, we should use it and then reflect the lower waste heat away. And I think that climate, that ocean, that atmospheric warming problem and the energy demand problem have I think a nice confluence there that we haven't quite reached yet. And fusion is just another possibility that I don't think. It's just big problems with it. The engineers know about the problems with fusion. So they're trying to get research funding. Without the research funding, they're not going to be able to produce sustainable fusion that's useful for us anyway. So I think we may as well fund them. But you also got to take it with a little bit of skepticism. Maybe a lot of skepticism.
Yeah. We will find out one day, or we won't.
Conventional fourth gen dirty nuclear reactors are pretty good, energy efficient wise. They've always had the cost of the waste treatment built into the price of their electricity, at least in the United States. I think in the EU as well, and Japan. So the waste treatment is a little bit overhyped. But I don't know.
I do want to interject real quick.
Go ahead. I think I've finished.
What I want to interject is this is the most viewers we've had this deep into a live stream, into the third hour. So if you are here and you've made it this far and you're new to the stream, one, welcome. Thanks for sticking around with us. Two, in the third hour of the live stream, we talk about whatever we want. It gets off the rails. First hour, pretty close to markets or research. Second hour, still close to markets, MMT stuff. Third hour, whatever we want. And you may not know that Bijou is a PhD theoretical physicist, correct? And so he probably doesn't like me bragging for him, but I will.
No, I don't like bragging because my mind wanders. So I've studied all sorts of physics. So you could call me a jack of all physics.
A jack of all physics.
Master of none. So I do have my own little research stuff that I work on that I could consider myself a world expert on. That's because I'm the only one doing it.
Real quick, Ty, I haven't. It must be YouTube doing it. I have never. We've yet to ever delete a chat message. So.
We have.
Yep, it must be. What I was going to say though is, if you want to get Bijou going on something, ask a physics question. That is the way to do it.
Well, AI question where
yeah,
I'll just have a complete different take to all the nerds.
So anyway, third hour, ask whatever the heck you want. We'll definitely come in. By the fourth hour, if we're still going, then get the kids out. Get the kids out of there.
It's got some pretty hilarious comments too.
I'm waiting for McDonald's to introduce the token.
I'm just catching up reading on Ken PDX.
Josh, we'll never have nice things. The damn laws of physics, man.
I mean, I think the sun. I don't get too hyped up with nuclear fusion. It's a cool technology, and if we crack it, it's going to be pretty cool. But I also I don't know. There's something romantic in me. I'm a bit of a naturalist in a sense, and I just love the idea of just using the sun and depowering ourselves down a little bit. Get rid of all the cryptocurrencies shit. Get rid of all the insane commuting back and forth from work. If you get rid of work commuting, you at least free up some of the transportation energy, real resource uses on vacations and actual pleasurable travel, if that's what you're into. And let's focus a lot more on energy conservation and moving energy from wasteful uses to really good uses. That's what I would say. So you can't just let the quote unquote free market just run wild like that. I think if we want to live in a civilized society, we've got to have some civilized laws and restrictions on what people can do without restricting, basic liberties and freedoms that are good. but restricting certain insanities, I think, is also kind of necessary for a decent civilization. So I think we can do plenty with the sun and with geothermal. And speaking of that, recently New Zealand researchers they've had some really, really interesting chemistry, which is not my area of expertise, but chemistry breakthroughs in descaling geothermal energy. One of the big problems with geothermal is that the pipes get all clunked up with these deposits, sulfate deposits and so forth. And in New Zealand, they figured out this really super amazing chemical brew that just dissolves those things and actually turns them into some useful sort of foamy materials that can be used elsewhere. So with geothermal and with solar, we probably I reckon we've got enough energy for all our future needs if we were just wise about using it. But I'm not saying I'm not a Luddite that we go backwards. I just say we use it wisely. We could serve more. We do less stupid things with our time and energy. That's what I'd say. I know I'm probably fighting a losing battle here, but that's my take.
Good take.
If everyone went into theoretical physics, all you need is a pen and paper. It's very low energy.
Well, yeah, until you ask the guys to test it and the gals to test it.
Do you have to do the miracle test? I don't know.
Yeah. Teddy Bruschi said, delete my comment, make me the first sacrifice. What I really worry about deleting a comment, because that might feed the algorithm to think that, like, your comment doesn't want to be seen.
Yeah, someone make a really insane comment that we can delete.
They'll come eventually. Although, I take that back. Never mind. I've had the porn bots come on. I've had to delete comments, but those don't count. I mean, those are just the spam bots.
Yeah, true spam. I don't think we're ever going to delete a Rob or a econ guy. No. We're probably going to want them more.
Yeah. If
it feed us, right?
If it gets overwhelming, I could see it. Hamel, did I ever answer the white collar question? Oh
yeah.
No, dude, I love pineapple on pizza, man. I love pineapple on pizza. What about the white collar question for the white collar recession? Okay, I have a thought on this. It's not well thought out at all. Usually when I talk these things out with Bijou, he can kind of lead me to formulate the full thought here. I think what happened with why we're seeing what's called the white collar recession is they all started posting their day in the life videos on TikTok, and and a boomer was like, screw this, I'm not paying these guys. I think what likely happened is there's probably some incentive, there's probably some need for leaders of companies to have their stock be at a certain valuation based on what they spend relative to the value of the company, right? Relative to the market share of the company or whatever, right? And so I bet they have this spreadsheet that says, we can only have this much of our expenditure on staff based on the current value. Otherwise, I'm not going to be getting my bonus, or however, right? I mean, however it works out, whatever cockamamie idea they came up with. And so all these stocks dropped throughout 2022, particularly hit by tech. And so it's just a function of them repricing their books.
That sounds correct.
That would be my guess, that if their stock prices never went down, they wouldn't feel the need to let go the employees. My thought, which is why it's looking like a white collar. Like, the only people, I mean, we're seeing obviously the employment data is as good as it's been in over half a century, and the 15,000 layoffs from all the the FANG or whatever, I guess Apple or it's not even FANG anymore, it's Mana, that's what it is. It's Mana. All the layoffs from Mana are making a dent in employment, and it's it's all from tech companies that have had, a 50% haircut on their stock price. So that would be my guess as I just kind of think it out loud, Hamel.
Yeah, seems about right. You got to look at what revenue they get to support their wage bill, and if it's not sales made by the staff, the employees, and it's something else, then the staff get the short end of the stick. And they suddenly realize, actually, I wasn't making any sales for this company, and my wage was being kind of subsidized by all this other stuff, and maybe I had a bullshit job. Yeah.
I mean, they probably. Yeah, I mean, they probably did.
Like I said, they've been reading David Graeber and going on a clean out, but it's that's a joke. But I agree with Douglas that it's probably the effect of some of their losses in other markets. Sad to say. But I don't know. Tech workers are skilled. Hopefully they'll be all right. I don't know.
Man, based on, I mean, listen, I know it's just a few TikTok videos, but there are just so many of these videos that keep popping up. Like, hey, this is the day. This is my life at working at Meta.
Yeah. Market.
And then and they don't do anything, which is fine. I mean, I realize that. I mean, this is the thing. Everyone who's saying like, these kids don't work. I mean, David Graeber's done the research. As it turns out, no one's working. So, like, don't harp on the kids. At least they're making, consumable content for people to watch and get a kick out of. There's no. I don't think there's. I really just think. My guess is, if I had to guess, it really is that there's some like metric that they use in the boardrooms to determine like, hey, it could even not even be, I mean, the revenues I know revenues have dipped, but it probably has more to do with various valuation models and all that stuff and how much they're going to have to pay them in the future. Who knows? But I think even the recessionary pressures, or like the white collar recessionary pressures, will be short lived. That's my guess. My hunch is by summertime we're going to start seeing a lot of rehiring take place, actually. So we'll see.
Come to New Zealand. I mean, our lockdown severely reduced our labor force, and both the government sector and private sector are quite in demand for skilled workers. And sometimes it only requires really good knowledge of English, being able to read and write, and get a pretty decent job down here in New Zealand if you want to. That'd be great. We do still have unemployment, so we're an MMT system with people running it who don't understand MMT
that are causing the unemployment.
Yeah. By the way, with the pizza and the pineapples, I also love pineapples on pizza. But if you want to get banned from the chat, hamburger pizzas, just type that in.
That would be. Wouldn't that just be like additional sausage? What else would be on a hamburger pizza?
Man, I don't know, but they're selling it around the corner store from where I live.
Mayonnaise and
I don't know, man. I don't even want to go.
Ketchup.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, just an extra beef hunk of meat. You guys have those meatball subs and all that too, though. So I imagine it's like that. Just squash the meatball down and stick it on the pizza.
Kind of getting hungry here.
And I don't know. I don't even know if they actually cut little mini bread buns and stick it on the pizza. That would be pretty cool. But no way I'm going near it.
Let's see. We are getting near the end, maybe 15 minutes out from wrapping this up. We can keep going. If the questions come in, we'll keep going.
What's who's this? Welcome, ukulele me.
Welcome. I think I've seen.
I don't know. Though. I thought I quashed nuclear there. No. Nuclear power is definitely something that exists in nature for humans to use. Let's just say that there's a bit of intelligent design, bit of intelligent design in the universe. Sorry to say, but no. Joking aside, definitely, I think nuclear power is going to be something that we probably should figure out how to use as a transition towards just pure solar and geothermal. But I still reckon if you crunch the numbers, although today you're going to project out that we definitely need some alternative energy, but that's a projection. You should never extrapolate like that into the future. That's what futurists do, and they get things right on the toss of a coin. They're half right, half wrong, and when they're right, it looks really cool because everyone forgets all the times that they're wrong.
Are you trying to say my prediction bot, which is really just a futurist,
I know, man,
is only a flip of a coin?
Oh yeah, he's just tossing a coin. I'm talking about wild extrapolations like that. I just reckon we can live really decent, wonderful lives. Everyone on Earth, no one has to lose out just from existing energy sources. And if we want to push it a little harder, nuclear is clean. So deal with the waste issue, and then we can do a little bit more. But I don't think we have to do more. It's like I agree with Josh, or Josh was agreeing with me that we can live really decent lives if we don't just keep chasing growth for the sake of growth, but we chase quality instead of quantity.
Some really good questions or just comments flowing in about Powell basically saying he wants to reduce wages, not target inflation anymore, that he wants to see unemployment rate increase. There are some things that advocacy wise that I'm just kind of like, I don't need to get on that bandwagon. I don't need to fly that flag. This one in particular is just so horrendous. I mean, it hurts so bad because the people that are going to get targeted, I don't even, it really does hurt. I mean, because
it doesn't compute, man. Why force the people who can least afford to pay?
Oh my God, it's so bad. I'm gonna rage here for just a second, but I mean, when you really think about what's happening with rate hikes, like let's just say they do cause unemployment, right? I mean, let's say they can be successful. I don't know what the trillions are, but it's into the or what the billions are at this time, but it's into the hundreds of billions of extra dollars have now been transferred from the public sector to only the wealthiest of the private sector to offset the losses that they've had to take on their assets. Okay. So we've seen the pump of income from the higher interest rate payments into the private sector. That money, of course, only goes to asset owners, right? But the idea is we're going to go ahead and do that. Make sure that the top 50% don't feel, the real effect from any slowdown in the economy that's attempting to be made, right? Even though we know it probably isn't actually doing anything, in an attempt to get the bottom 50% laid off so they can just then have to live in a world where they don't have an income, but now prices are even higher than they were before. What an absolutely insidious system. And then on top of that, if they do get laid off, the cause of inflation in the first place being a lack of real output to meet the demand of the higher wages that happened post-COVID, how is that going to fix anything? You're just going to be punishing people. I don't know. I have a lot of fun. I have a lot of fun with all of this stuff, but when it gets to the fact that, I mean, it's not punishing people that, that deserve it. It's not even punishing people that just don't know any better. I mean, it's targeting people who just shouldn't be punished from the system. I'll digress, but I mean, you guys get the
even worse. Even if people are lazy, you're putting people out of work because they're too lazy.
Yeah, I don't know. It's
Germany treating Greece. Greece. The Greeks were more harder working than Germans. I mean, maybe their output isn't as great, but they're less lazy people. But the German narrative, or Brussels and Berlin are like, oh, those lazy Greeks. We've got to punish them by putting them out of work because they're not working hard enough. It's the Mozart. It just makes no sense. It's just, the outrage can never be high enough. You can go up to 11 and you've still got more outrage to feel. I haven't been following the news. Sorry, Josh, on the Turkey earthquake.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen the headlines.
Were they pretty
but
bad? Were they?
yeah, it looks like
Yeah.
11,000 dead at this point. Maybe even
Yeah.
maybe even more. Very sad though. Obviously, very sad. It makes me
The
wonder.
Earth. Yeah.
It makes me wonder if AI is going to be able to get ahead on being able to predict earthquakes. It seems like a problem
Right.
a problem built for some of the new models that are coming out.
Be.
That's another
If it's a
question.
physical model with AI tuning the parameters.
Bijou, did you see the articles about the Earth's
Quick.
inner core?
I
Stopping.
didn't see the article, but it's been in the physics press for quite a while. Geophysics. It's not it's not like the Earth stops spinning, but the molten core has a circulation pattern that's not it's not a simple pattern because it's three-dimensional, so it's not spinning around in a circle, but it does generate the Earth's magnetic field. But because it's not a simple circular or cylindrical flow, the Earth's magnetic field it doesn't look like a bar magnet, right? So the Earth's magnetic field, if you look at it, it's got all this interesting patterns to it, and it's only in a very average sense that it's a north-south bar magnet. But and I was right. So, but it takes a really long time for that flip to happen, like thousands of years. And over geological time, it's millions of years between the flipping of the Earth's molten core circulation pattern, which can flip the north and the south poles around. And the thing is like I forget what it is now. I'll have to go back and read it, but for 500 years, or maybe 100, or maybe 1,000, I forget the time scale, but for a decent period of time, there's a period where the Earth's magnetic field's pretty weak because it's trying to sort of change from north to south pole. And when the Earth's magnetic field gets a bit weak, the ionized particles from the sun, from the solar radiation, have a bit more of a chance to get through. So you can get a decent incidence of cancer, higher rates of cancer coming through from that. And so it can become a little bit of a public health problem.
If it fully flips.
It's going to take it takes a while to fully flip. So in the long time that it takes to flip, we have a weaker magnetic field and less protection from the solar radiation. So more radio disruptions, more just more disruptions to communications in general. But most plants and animals have fairly good hardened protection. Just humans don't, right? So you can have a lot of extra like skin cancers and that, or would need more protection going outside. So it's a little bit like the ozone hole. It's a sort of similar problem. Let's in more radiation. Yeah, it's an interesting topic, but I think worry about that a bit later. There's nothing much we can do. Nothing much we can do about it either. We have to radiation protect ourselves. The Earth's core is going to flip no matter what. We can't stop it. So it's a matter of it's not an urgent issue, I don't think, to worry about in our lifetimes. Far more important is the ecology, and biosphere, climate change. Yeah, make a good disaster movie.
Yeah, the inner core. I just keep thinking of that line. I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I've said this before in Episode 1, when he's talking about having to take the boat, the little boat speeder through the Earth's inner core. That's all I hear about. Well, we'll have to dig to the inner core to stop the reverse the reversal of it.
Also, maybe if someone's protecting Canada, I don't know. You have to. It's up to the gods as to where the magnetic field gets weakened the most. So it depends. It might depend on where you live, and it might travel around. So the weak points in the Earth's ionosphere might actually move around from time to time, and that's why it's like you want to adopt the Ben Shapiro policy of house moving.
God.
Put our houses on wheels so you can just move them around. I don't know.
Well, they're just other house.
Yeah. Get a ionosphere protection insurance policy or something. I don't know. Yeah. I'm not worried about it, but yes, future generations might be.
He's not worried about it because he lives in the southern hemisphere, and now he'll get to be the northern hemisphere and finally get to say, "I'm
Oh
on
yeah,
top now.
we'll be up on top.
I'm on
Oh,
top
damn.
now."
Yeah.
um, 6 to 12 inch thick walls to conserve energy. I mean, I think insulation does a good job. I guess
More insulation. Yeah.
my walls are. I don't know if it is 8 inches.
Yeah,
Is that the standard? Is that what the standard is? And
we have this talk from time to time about government subsidies for insulating older homes and all that sort of thing.
yeah,
There's some definite improvements we can make to energy efficiency.
I wish I could insulate it more from the noise that happens in the house, but we're gonna get there. We're one of these days.
People in the chat don't realize that Douglas comes through loud and clear, but apparently in the background, like his
kids screaming their heads off.
Crazy.
Oh my god, it's
we don't hear any of it.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys don't hear it. But it is distracting over here.
Trailer houses, yeah.
All right, crew. Any other questions? Ship them our way. Otherwise, we've had
Trailer McMansion.
We've had a pretty good live stream.
Yeah, don't forget to send questions for next week where we have a.
I will
probably knows a little bit more than us.
For those of you who have made it to the entire live stream, I will reveal at this point who the guest is going to be. The guest is going to be none other than the man himself, the godfather of the father of MMT. Warren Moser should be on next week. That's the plan. We'll have him from, again, 6 p.m. until 8 p.m. And if you have any questions, ship them my way, DM me on Twitter or something like that. I mean, obviously, we're going to get quite a lot of questions in, and I'm going to have we're gonna have our own questions that I'm gonna have the stuff I want to ask. So might not be able to hit everything, but definitely show up next week. Should be a good one. I'm excited for it. I know it's been from my understanding, he's very generous at this time and probably would have came on a long time ago to come talk on the channel. But I think now's a good time, and I'd love to see what he's thinking. And I do have the first question already queued up, so I really want to give him the opportunity to kind of talk about things that just aren't being talked about that are probably important to be talked about. So kind of less just, fire questions that he's been asked 100 times, and give him a chance to talk about things that because there are a lot of things throughout the years that he said, and it's so fascinating because he not only to get the framework right, but also the policy implications of it. And it's like I put the government job guarantee on the back burner in my own kind of mental thinking for so long. It's not important. But then you get into it, and it's like, no, this is really important. I mean, there's some big implications about this. I think I really want to see what else he has to say that really hasn't been fully digested by the public yet. And I think we have a pretty cool platform for that. I mean, there are MMT enthusiasts, and everything I'm seeing in the chat too. We have by far, even our small little group here of 10, 20, 30 people that tune in throughout the night. Our little community here seems to be one of the smartest communities out there. So it's certainly well learned out of the communities. I'm seeing some questions come in, so I'm gonna pop these up. In New Zealand, does Santa come from the South Pole instead of the North Pole? Yeah. If not, why? Does he have at least a fulfillment center there?
Fulfillment? You mean one of those little cubicles?
No, like a fulfillment, like no, like an Amazon warehouse. So he doesn't have to go all the way from the North Pole back down to the South Pole.
That's right.
That's a good point.
But for you naughty cats, it stores the coal still in Newcastle. That's where Bill Mitchell's got a piece of coal from Newcastle miners that spontaneously was mined out of the ground in the shape of Larry Summers. And every time he gets annoyed, he just drills holes into this lump of coal. I've heard.
One of the truth be told, Josh, as we head into Super Bowl weekend, one of the first models I ever tried to put together was a Bays model was for fantasy football. It didn't work, but really didn't know what I was doing at the time, and then gave it up. Put my efforts elsewhere. I don't think Bays was the tool for that.
By the way, if anyone can get Oprah to come on our show, that'd be great.
Geez, yeah.
What I suggested to the Applied MMT podcast guys is that they invite people on to just teach them about MMT live, see how that goes. It could be a total disaster, of course, but I reckon it's a thing I'd do if I had the social media pull. I just grab a random person or maybe someone from my family, bring them on, and just live walk through.
Oh yeah, like man on the street stuff. Yeah,
man on the street. Yeah. And just go through the whole thing, see if it can be done in under an hour or more.
Person on the street. I guess it's 2023.
My whole thing is that MMT ain't rocket science, but it is a bit of a flip of the switch, so it takes a while.
Yeah.
It's not like you slowly turn to dial from zero to around to to 10, whatever it is. It is a flip of the switch. So you keep pushing on the switch until it flips. Boom, boom, boom. Keep.
God, that would be a good question. Actually, you know what? After we do next week's show, the week after, I should do a poll and leave it up for a little while to find out how many people had the haters are gonna love this. Had a slow conversion to MMT, and how many had a flip of the switch? Because mine was flip of the switch, man. I mean, I changed my name to Jane. I put on the white jumpsuit, and I'd say I shaved my head, but we know that was already natural.
Change everything.
Yeah, that was already naturally done for me. But I would be kind of curious how many people went from like, I pieced it together over time, and eventually I realized MMT was right, or was it just like, no, it very clearly demonstrated that I was incorrect, so therefore, my intellectual honesty made me change. Whoops.
There's one thing, yeah. So stories. In the community, I don't think we discuss that enough. Although it's a big thing. It's a big thing I like to discuss. I mean, it doesn't fit with your channel and Dougbot, but I think Applied MMT would be into that.
I'm sorry. What comment were you saying? What?
Sorry.
I didn't catch that last comment. Yeah.
Oh, you're Oh no, just the idea of listening to some stories of people of how they.
Well, you know what I was thinking? You can do polls.
How they did the conversion.
You can do polls, so I think I might do a poll: quick conversion, slow conversion, like
right.
Or I've yet to partake in the Eucharist of MMT.
Looks like Ty Keynes is going to be a good baseline there.
Yeah,
because I'd be interested to know whether Ty there has like how slow is that really? I mean, it's probably, you think about it in the big picture things, it's still probably pretty rapid, wouldn't you say?
I guess what would be the base case that you'd have to say, yep, I agree with this. 6 to 8 next week Eastern time, correct. 2 hours earlier than we normally start. That is correct, Ken.
Yeah.
I want to make sure.
Be earlier.
Yes. What was I going to say?
About the time frame?
Yeah. Okay. What would you have to agree with theoretically?
Right.
To at least say you're an MMTer.
Right.
I mean,
we say, you say, they say.
Yeah.
I think the person themselves maybe has to say, but then that may be like a little bit muddy.
Yeah.
It's like, Steve Keen, would he call himself an MMTer?
Yeah.
Obviously he is, but he doesn't call himself an
MMTer because MMT has more connotation to it.
It's a subjective thing. Yeah. It's a
bit
of a fuzzy thing. Anyway, it's still an interesting conversation.
Yeah, I say it only to get into a question for a poll that we could say one way or another. Anyway, that's a question for next week.
Right. But also, I still plug the live teaching of MMT. I reckon would be
a fun,
an untapped thing. What
if I get my wife on? She would kill me.
Yeah,
she'd kill me.
Yeah. Anyway, are we going to wrap it up now?
Yeah, I think
I have to take a toilet break. And,
yeah, no kidding. I know. Eventually, the coffee hits the bladder.
Yeah. Fun again.
All right, crew. We're going to call it an episode. Peace, everybody. Have a great night. I'm going to give Bijou the out. But again, let me just put it in there one more time. that it's going to be next week, 6 p.m. Eastern time. That's when we have everything lined up. And then I said I'd plug it one time, but give me just a second time to plug the Patreon real quick. Patreon.com/MMT Macro Trader. If that's something you're interested in, check that out. I will now go back to the chat. And those who have signed up recently, I really appreciate the support. Awesome stuff. Keeps us motivated. All that good stuff. With that being said, I've wrapped it up. We're going to go to the fun close from the boring close.
Yeah, well, I guess tonight it's going to be Jerome Powell, right? So it's like holy hyperinflations, Douglas. What happened to the Caped Crusader of capitalism, Jerome the Unemployer Powell? Was his utility belt sabotaged? Or did he just not have the fiscal tools in the first place? Leaving the Gotham Central Batcave of banking unprepared. Could it really be? Don't say it's so, Dougbot. To find out whether Jerome the Unemployer Powell actually gets his unemployment, tune in next week. Different MMT time, same MMT channel. Yeah.
Awesome. Good night, everybody. Good night.
Everyone.
See you next week.